Chapter 551. Departure. The demonic eye was really no small matter. Yang Chen saw all the beasts on the way, as if they had eaten meat, and all the beasts were so excited that they didn't even care about the reproduction plan, and ran wildly towards the center. There were several flying monsters that have taken the lead and rushed to the front. Yang Chen doesn't care what these beasts will do after they rush to the central area. What he had to do now was to quickly escape from this terrible area, then take his 4 sweet wives with him, and leave the demon continent as quickly as possible. This large number of species of beasts, it is impossible to say that they will start a battle between dragons and tigers and finally decide which tough guy will guard the center, and then all species of beasts will be rearranged according to their strength. You must know that the closer you are to the center, the more intense the demonic eye. For these beasts, it also means a better living environment and more demonic eye resources. It also means that they can reproduce more and stronger offspring. This battle will definitely last for a long time, enough to take the 4 ladies away. Speaking of which, the initial refining of the space connection point was successful, and in the future, it can be refined anytime and anywhere, so leaving the demon continent was the right way. Now that these beasts are robbing them, no one will know that after Yang Chen refines the space, they will not get a trace of demonic eye, and it will all be owned by Yang Chen alone. Speaking of which, Yang Chen's trip to the center was a bountiful harvest that he didn't even expect himself. Not to mention, the huge demon orb alone was enough to cause a frenzy in the Dao sects. All things were too late to organize, safety first, Yang Chen drove the shuttle and added a layer of shielding to the outside and quickly rushed out of the area where the beasts were dense. Fortunately, all the beasts were focused on the demonic eye, so Yang Chen was able to rush out unaffected. It has been a few years since Yang Chen left, and all the girls were actually anxiously waiting in the most central gathering point. They could only wait patiently while cultivating. Finally Yang Chen returned. "Let's go." As soon as Yang Chen met them, he didn't say much, just a word, and left with the 4 daughters without stopping. He didn't even tell them what happened. The 4 girls could also see the seriousness of the situation from Yang Chen's face, so they got up and left without hesitation. This was a good thing about cultivators, almost all of their belongings were carried on them. There was no need to clean up at all, just turn around and leave. Everyone, there will be big changes in this place in the near future. Leave as soon as you can. Yang Chen was about to leave with the 4 women when he saw some cultivators who were still doing business and resting in the gathering point. Regardless of the status or position of these cultivators, Yang Chen felt it was necessary to warn them. This sentence has no beginning or end, which was confusing. But Yang Chen didn't give those people a chance to ask questions. He directly drove the shuttle and flew towards the outermost periphery. At the gathering point, there were no demonized monsters that could threaten Yang Chen. So he felt free to use the flying magic weapon. Yang Chen was completely happy to leave, but it made the cultivators who were resting at the gathering point inexplicable. Those who do business are fine, they have met Yang Chen before and know Yang Chen's identity, but most of the others didn't know Yang Chen. They came here for a rest, and because they heard that Grandmaster Yang would stay here, they came to find Grandmaster Yang to purify their demon orbs. Those cultivators who knew Yang Chen immediately realized that something big had happened and immediately packed up their things and left without nostalgia. This action immediately made everyone else a little worried. A cultivator grabbed a store owner who was about to leave, frowned and asked, "What happened, why are you leaving?" "I don't know what's going on, but Grandmaster Yang said that he wants us to leave immediately, so I will leave immediately." The store owner didn't want to stay for a moment, so he just dropped the sentence, then broke free from the man's arm and hurriedly left. Grandmaster Yang. Which Grandmaster Yang? The shopkeeper's words also made several people around him frown and asked. "Which Grandmaster Yang is there? What are you coming here for?" A shopkeeper who followed behind gave a wry smile, and without hesitation, he took out his flying sword and left quickly, leaving behind a large group of people who hadn't fully reacted. Grandmaster Yang, the demon orb refiner. Most people suddenly became serious when they heard that the words were from Grandmaster Yang. Everyone looked at each other for a long time and then seemed to have reacted suddenly, got up quickly and left without caring about anything else. Even Grandmaster Yang, the demon orb refiner, said he was going to leave and the shopkeepers left without hesitation. Doesn't that explain the problem? Those who can get here must be experts, and they are all smart masters who have been training for many years. No one was a fool. If it was a matter of life and death, if they would rather believe it or not, they would leave. In less than the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, this gathering spot immediately became clean and no one stayed. "Husband, what happened?" After Yang Chen found the direction and set the shuttle, he sat down in the shuttle. Gao Yu stood behind Yang Chen and then gently massaged Yang Chen. While massaging, she asked. When Gao Yu asked, the other 3 girls were not idle either. Zhanxian quickly made a pot of tea for Yang Chen, then filled the cup and delivered it to Yang Chen, while Sun Qingxu took advantage of it and got into Yang Chen's arms, waiting for him to answer. I took the center point of the overflowing demonic chi. Yang Chen had nothing to hide from his wives, it may cause a big change, so it's better to leave early. Without the most core species of beasts within a few hundred miles, it is true that the remaining species of beasts were shuffled. However, because the species has been reduced a lot, there was no ultimate demonized demon vine, which can suppress the demonic chi. The demonic chi that the remaining species of beasts can get will definitely increase, and in a short time, all species of beasts will skyrocket in strength. The consequence of the soaring strength of the beasts was that the strength of the demonized beasts they breed will also soar. Others don't know, Yang Chen was the most aware of how strong the demonic chi that escaped from that demonic chi overflow point. He was afraid that the demonized monsters near the core gathering point can grow at least 2 small realms in strength as a whole. That also means that the demonized monsters that were originally just at the late and peak datching stage will all have the cultivation of the first and second grade human immortal realm. Not everyone has the strength of Yang Chen and Li Cheng that surpasses the imagination to deal with them. Yang Chen was just helping out those cultivators morally. As for whether they listen or not, that was their business. Yang Chen has absolutely no idea how influential his own words as Grandmaster Yang was. Not a single cultivator at the gathering point was left. Hearing that Yang Chen actually broke the center point, the 4 girls were a little stunned. They have not yet entered the core area, and even in that area, they had to work together to protect themselves and try together. Their husband actually reached such a state quietly, while they were rejoicing, they also felt that they were being pulled further and further away from their husband. Don't belittle yourself. Of course, Yang Chen could understand what his 4 wives were thinking. If the others didn't say anything, Zhanxian had almost written the meaning on her face, how could he not see it? I was extremely lucky this time, otherwise I would have died. Yang Chen sighed and began to talk about his experience. Hearing those beasts were above the 7th grade human immortal realm and the ultimate demonized demon vines was at the 2nd earth immortal realm, all the girls couldn't help exclaiming. Everyone couldn't help but tremble when they thought that their husband was in so many places where he could get killed at any time. It was so shocking that things had passed, and one could imagine Yang Chen's mood at that time, it was no wonder that Yang Chen would flee in such a hurry as soon as he came out. If it was them, they would definitely do the same thing. Then they heard that their husband was regarded as a descendant by the ultimate demonized demon vine because of the 9 nether flying sword and was almost absorbed for healing. Everyone was terrified, as for saying that the terrifying black liquid had finally demonized the demon vine and was on the verge of death at that time, it was a shocking thing. No wonder their husband said that he was extremely lucky, he really was. With so many coincidences, whichever one did not catch up, Yang Chen was at a dead end. After all this he was able to come back with all the beards and tails, which was already great luck. Don't take such dangerous risks in the future. After listening to Yang Chen's narration, when everyone was frightened, Gao Yu once again showed the face of being his long-lost master. She scolded Yang Chen severely. If you don't think about yourself, then think about us sisters. You have to have 3 strengths and 2 weaknesses, how will we cope if something happens to you? This time, the 4 wives all stood on the opposite side of Yang Chen and they all complained about Yang Chen. Until Yang Chen repeatedly promised that he would never take such a risk again before they gave up. Although the 4 girls behaved like this, Yang Chen's heart was full of sweetness. Was there anything more happier than the fact that your wives cared about you? Yang Chen did not stop along the way. Driving the shuttle at full speed toward the edge of the demon continent. This trip has completely achieved their purpose of gaining experience. Decades have passed and it was time to return to the sect. The flying shuttle was galloping and galloping all the way. It was not until halfway through the demon continent that Yang Chen finally felt relieved. At least here, there will be no danger for the time being. Only then did the family's emotions ease and the 4 girls began to share their experiences with Yang Chen. Summarizing various battles, Yang Chen also shared his own experience, everyone has benefited a lot. Because of Li Cheng's instructions, everyone was polishing their spiritual power, making the spiritual power more and more pure. Simply speaking of their spiritual power cultivation, it did not increase much and still maintained the level of middle Yuning stage. But in terms of real fighting ability, the 4 women have even been able to deal with a demonized monster in the early datching stage alone. As for Yang Chen, he couldn't use common sense to guess. Anyway, apart from some old monsters from big sects, there was no way anyone could be his opponent. It was too early to deal with the demon orbs and the 9 nether flying sword before, and Yang Chen was afraid that if he dealt with it in the demon continent, it would cause unnecessary trouble, so he should temporarily seal it in the storage bag and wait until he left the demon continent. After several months of driving, they finally came to the edge of the demon continent. It was still the same entrance back then, but now it has become the exit for Yang Chen and others to leave. If they want to leave, they must make an oath to be released by the formation. It didn't matter that Yang Chen and others were only at the Yuning stage, even those masters who have risen through the tribulation must make a big oath before they ascend that they will never reveal the true situation of the demon continent before they are sent to the spiritual world. Otherwise it will only trigger the attack of the formation. Yang Chen and others knew this rule long ago, and after everyone made an oath, they were able to move from a sudden opening in the formation to another place. Here was a resting place for all those leaving waiting for the exit to open. Basically, the rules here were the same as the gathering point. Those who want to leave also know that the demon continent hides dragons and crouching tigers. No one will set up an enemy who does not know how powerful they are when they want to leave safely. Big brother. To Yang Chen's surprise, he saw Li Cheng's figure again here. This is really fate. Li Cheng was also at this resting point, waiting for the exit to be opened. In terms of time, it was so consistent with Yang Chen and others. When they came in, they were together, and they never made an agreement, but they were also together when they were leaving. He couldn't help but say that it was really fate. You guys are leaving too. Li Cheng never thought that he would meet Yang Chen's family here, and after meeting his 4 younger siblings, he couldn't help but sigh as expected. It is fate, it seems that you and I really have to be brothers. The acquaintances were happy to meet each other, and everyone was chatting again. After Li Cheng also cultivated near the central area, he felt that the purpose of the journey had been achieved, so he left. From this point of view, Yang Chen and Li Cheng's views were the same. It was not necessary to be able to deal with the most powerful demonized beasts to complete the goal. As long as you can hone your combat skills and find a way to deal with inner demons capable of fighting high-intensity combat, these were enough. As for dealing with the enemy, their cultivation base was high, and when the time comes, it will naturally be done. What's more, with everyone's aptitude, they don't need to spend more time here to gain more opportunities for themselves. After everyone was talking with each other, Yang Chen suddenly remembered that the big brother he had sworn in should be a master refiner. It would only take hundreds of years to refine the geographical map of mountains and rivers without seeing him instructing Gongsun Ling to refine the geographical map of mountains and rivers. Such a refining master might know how to refine those powerful black liquids. Yang Chen's 9th water flying sword might also have the possibility of being refined. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 552. Vicious Poison. I have a question that I want to ask Big Brother. Yang Chen thought of it and acted immediately. Oh? What's the problem? Li Cheng didn't care and asked very casually. I recently found a 9th water material, and I want to refine it into a 9th water flying sword, but this material is a bit special, I don't know how to refine it. Yang Chen asked sincerely. Although Yang Chen was a good refiner in his previous life, he was still a lot worse than a real refining expert. Moreover, the magic weapon he made by himself was limited to the magic weapon of fire attribute. For other attributes, he saw more and heard more, but he did less. To be able to bring the great yin-yang 5 elements flying sword to this point on several occasions by fate was already a great achievement. But when he really came across a material that he was not familiar with and didn't know the refining method, Yang Chen still had to seek help. There were not many people in the resting place. Apart from Yang Chen's family and Li Cheng, there were 2 Dacheng stage cultivators in the other corner. Li Cheng didn't worry that anyone would hear it and asked curiously, what good material is it that even you don't know how to refine it? Li Cheng had also seen Yang Chen's methods, especially his cultivation of yin-yang and 5 elements, refining the great yin-yang 5 elements flying sword, which was enough to make him look at Yang Chen with admiration. But now that he heard that there were materials that Yang Chen couldn't figure out, he immediately became interested. Yang Chen's thoughts moved, and a drop of black liquid oozed out from the gap of the flying sword, and then Abby also stretched out a thin green vine from the medicine garden. It was spread on Yang Chen's hand. Carefully holding the drop of black liquid, Yang Chen stretched out his hand in Li Cheng's direction. Li Cheng's face also became serious. He stood up, looked at the drop of black liquid carefully, and then frowned. After careful observation, Li Cheng suddenly gritted his teeth, stretched out a finger, and lightly touched the black liquid. Yang Chen watched all this happen, but did not stop it, just quietly waiting for the results of Li Cheng's analysis. Yang Chen knew that with Li Cheng's cultivation base, it would never be dangerous if he touched it with just one little finger, but he was still careful to prepare and always planned to use the blue jasper blood demon vine to detoxify Li Cheng. Hoo. After Li Cheng came into contact with the black liquid, he made a sound of gasping for air, and after a while, he twisted his fingers to dissolve the black liquid that he had touched, leaving no trace behind. He gritted his teeth and said, "You want to use this kind of thing to make flying swords, you are really vicious. Whoever is your enemy will be a blood mold for 8 lifetimes." Li Cheng's unceremonious scolding has fully explained the horror of the black liquid. Yang Chen's wives were also watching. Although Yang Chen talked about the black liquid, he never let them see the real thing, for fear of hurting the girls. Now they finally had the opportunity to witness it with their own eyes. Although they didn't know the power of the black liquid, even Li Cheng said so, which shows how scary the black liquid was. The girls listened to Li Cheng's laughter and scolding, and their hearts were also somewhat concerned. Even if these black liquids were not used, it would not be a happy thing to be Yang Chen's enemy. The material is good, top of the top. After Li Cheng scolded, he still commented objectively however, what material do you plan to use for the hilt? Presumably according to your habit, you still prefer to fight with a flying sword in your hand, right? As soon as Li Cheng finished speaking, an unfamiliar voice suddenly interjected, what top quality material can be so good? Can you let this old man take a look? There was negotiation in the words, but there was no negotiation in the tone, but a kind of arrogance, as if Yang Chen had to do what he said. It was one of the two daching stage masters who were resting in the other corner. The two masters were one in the early daching stage and the other in the middle daching stage. It was the early daching stage master who spoke. However, the master in the middle daching stage was also watching with cold eyes, and there was a threat in his eyes. The bad habits of those who have cultivated and gained experience in the demon continent was bullying the weak and not afraid of taking them by themselves. There was no so-called morality in the slightest. What everyone was excited about was that strength is the key, so doing such a thing at a time like this was nothing but ordinary. Boy, do you want me to teach you to be good before leaving the demon continent? The middle-aged man in the early daching stage said with a grin, if you don't show your wealth, don't offer your treasures in public, or you will die miserably. Today you met us, if you are lucky, us two old men are reasonable, we will just have a look, is that too much to ask? The four girls were all discolored, although they were all in the middle Yuning stage, they had killed one or two masters in the daching stage. How could there be two guys in the early and middle stages of the Mahayana who were making noises and acting as seniors here? At the moment, they wanted to teach these two disrespectful guys a lesson. Don't be so impulsive, fighting is banned here. Yang Chen's words were just an understatement, and the four girls obediently threw away their temper. You are really lucky to have such a good wives. Li Cheng, however, didn't care what happened, just praising the girls. What he wants from me, I will give it to him, isn't it hands-on? Yang Chen suddenly asked as if he was talking to himself. No. Li Cheng immediately shook his head and answered with certainty, if you don't believe me, ask them, does this count as hands-on? Of course not. How can this be considered hands-on? Hearing Yang Chen talking like this, the faces of the two daching stage masters were all smiles, and the master at the early daching stage replied immediately. After speaking, he was still smiling, you're on the road, and I'll save your life. That's good. Since you want to see it, take a look. Yang Chen didn't lift his head, flicked his palm, and a drop of black liquid flew over. Thinking of the masters in the middle daching stage, Li Cheng just stretched out his finger and dipped a little bit, and there was still some left, enough for the two guys to look carefully. Seeing the black liquid getting close, the masters casually reached out and took them. Just now Yang Chen stretched out his hand like this, and Li Cheng also touched it with his fingers. The two juniors in the Yuning stage were so relaxed, wouldn't it be easier to replace them with a senior in the daching stage? However, Yang Chen's willingness to give as much as he can now makes the two of them misjudge it. If it's so easy to get it, this thing was obviously not a good thing. What can a junior in the Yuning stage say is the best of the best? They don't know how many things they have never seen or heard of. Do you know what is the best? At this time, the two of them were already a little regretful. They didn't get the precious material that they were hoping for, and they didn't get the name of being a big bully. Although no one would care about this, it would not sound good after all. Drip, the half drop of black liquid directly hit the hand of the middle daching stage master, and then splashed. However, even though black water splashed, this drop of black liquid seemed to be very viscous. The master of the middle daching stage only felt that the palm of his hand was wet, and he planned to retract his arm and put it in front of him. However, when this thought came to him, he also began to exert force to retract his arm, but the arm remained stretched out and did not move. What happened? The master in the middle daching stage had cold sweat on his head, and only then did he realize that his arm was only touched by a drop of black liquid, and he immediately became paralyzed, his arm no longer listening to the command of his brain. Thinking of the word so vicious that Li Cheng said just now, how could he not understand? This black liquid was poisonous, and it was also highly vicious. Just by seeing that he can be paralyzed and unable to move, he knew that this poison was definitely ranked in the top few in the mortal world strange poison. Junior dared to use poison to deceive me? The master was shocked and couldn't help but scold. After saying this, he planned to rush out and slap Yang Chen to the ground with one hand, but suddenly he found that he was completely unconscious below his chest. The expert at the early daching stage, who was the first to speak next to him, was shocked when his companion said that he had been poisoned. However, just as his flying sword was unsheathed, a thunderbolt suddenly dropped from the dome above his head, and with a click, it evenly hit the forehead of the early daching stage master. "Why did you come here? You are not allowed to do any fighting here." Yang Chen and Li Cheng both stood there and didn't move. Yang Chen even looked at the two guys with a very regretful look and tone and shook his head. "We will leave soon. If you want to leave, what can't you think of? You have to jump into this kind of muddy water by yourself." The voice fell, and the master of the early daching stage just burst out. Now he stopped in front of everyone. His body maintains a rushing posture, but his eyes were no longer clear and bright, there was only a void of death. That thunder, it has directly damaged his whole body. He never imagined that he who had been cultivating in the demon continent for hundreds of years, both of them finally achieved a breakthrough. How could they be vulnerable in front of these Yuning stage juniors? It's just that the thunder released by the seal formation was not a random joke. This is not the inside of the demon continent. Although the gathering point was not allowed to use force, there was no such powerful guardian to maintain order. Now everyone was on the edge of the seal formation, and there was an additional attack formation, which was all too powerful. Common was common, but power was not common at all. A thunderbolt went down, and the master of the early daching stage was hit. There was no more movement. Everyone's spiritual awareness was released. Even if they can't see his face, they all understood, he was dead now. As for the remaining one, it was just a master who reached out to pick up the black liquid and didn't do anything. Now he was completely paralyzed and could no longer move. The mind of the cultivator was full of remorse. He was about to finish his training and leave the hellish environment of the demon continent. Why can't he help himself and want to bully a few Yuning stage juniors? As a result, the things that the two juniors were holding were no obstacle at all, but he and the old man were both dead and paralyzed. If he knew this earlier, why would he bother? Would he be dead if he listened to their discussions quietly? In the final analysis, greed was still at play. When they heard that several juniors had top-notch materials in their hands, both of them immediately became coveted at the same time. The so-called people die for money, it was really true. The paralyzed master still thought that he must endure the humiliation and bear the burden. After the poison strikes, he can force out the poison, and then he can kill these arrogant boys one by one to vent his hatred. However, the pain and itching from the palms and the hissing sound made the cultivator's mood sink into hell in an instant. That black drop of liquid was actually highly corrosive. Right in front of the master in the middle daching stage, his palm started from the point where it touched the black liquid, gradually turned into black pus, and then the whole palm, arm, wrist, arm, the connected flesh and blood, began to flow continuously. It was deeply corroded, revealing the bones of the cultivator. Seeing his own flesh and blood turn into bones, it is not that people in the game can't feel that kind of fear at all. Even though this master has been trained in the demon continent for many years and he has seen various killing scenes many times, when it really happened to him, he realized how fragile he was after his experience. At this time, the cultivator finally understood what Li Cheng meant by scolding Yang Chen for being vicious just now. It's really not wrong at all, it really was vicious. However, at this point, the cultivator could only watch helplessly, unable to make any changes, and even begging for mercy. He could only watch the flesh and blood on his arm disappear bit by bit with fear, starting to disappear from his shoulders and chest. Yang Chen, Li Cheng, and Yang Chen's 4 wives, none of them wanted to save him, they all watched silently. Such a terrifying corrosiveness made the 4 girls finally understand why Li Cheng asked Yang Chen what he planned to use as the hilt. Can someone really hold a flying sword made from such a thing with their hands? Sure enough. Li Cheng withdrew his gaze from the cultivator, frowned and began to think, I have never seen such a thing before, I have to think about it carefully. There will be no results for a while, so don't worry, wait until I think of a safe way to start refining it. Then I'll thank Big Brother first. Yang Chen was not in a hurry. If Li Cheng came up with a refining method on the spot, it would be terrifying. On the contrary, this was very natural. Anyway, he still needs a lot of time to refine the 2 space points, the entrance of the immortal beheading stage and the exit of the demonic eye, so he can't take care of it too much for the time being. When I think of a way, I will send it to your sect. It will not delay your business. Li Cheng nodded and gave Yang Chen a small promise. At this point, everyone stopped talking about the black liquid, chatting with each other about some interesting things happening inside the demon continent, and slowly waiting for the exit to open. This time the wait time was not long, after 7 days, the exit was opened. Everyone filed out and finally broke away from the seal formation of the demon continent. We will meet in the future. Yang Chen and Li Cheng clasped their fists to say goodbye to each other. Li Cheng took a step ahead and disappeared in the opposite direction of Yang Chen's in the eyes of Yang Chen's family. Let's go home. After leaving the demon continent, Yang Chen's spirit was also lifted. Looking at his 4 beautiful wives, he waved his hand in high spirits and flew away in time. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 553. Deadly Treats. Once at sea, it was now truly safe, at least in the previous life. After Yang Chen's ascension for a long time, there was no problem with that ceiling formation, and now it won't be a big problem if he thinks about it. As long as Yang Chen could refine the space connection point where the demonic Kai overflows, there will be no more worries. The flying shuttle drilled directly into the bottom of the sea, and Yang Chen's heart, which was a little nervous along the way, was completely relieved. To be honest, there were some things that even Yang Chen would be afraid of. If there weren't so many coincidences this time, Yang Chen himself would also be lost in the demon continent, which would really not be worth a loss. In the future, such a dangerous thing, if he could, he would try not to do it. However, the benefits were by no means absent, not to mention what he has obtained. Just the experience in cultivation was enough to satisfy Yang Chen, not to mention the situation where he cannot control the memory of his past life. How beneficial it was for Yang Chen gaining experience in dealing with emergencies. Counting it with his fingers, it was exactly 50 years from the year they entered the demon continent to when they left. Not much time had passed, exactly as Yang Chen estimated back then. 50 years of experience in the demon continent was also a rare opportunity for the 4 girls. In their previous lives, they had never been trained in the demon continent, and after ascending, they still became the incomparably powerful Fairy Hanmei and Fairy Shuwu. With this experience in this life, it was even more difficult to estimate the growth of the 4 women. If nothing else, at least it saves hundreds of years of correcting mistakes in cultivation. They will only be better in the future. The slaughter in the demon continent had caused the hands of the 4 girls to be infected with no less than tens of thousands of lives. Although the killing intent on their bodies could not be compared to that of Yang Chen, the casual release was enough to make ordinary cultivators feel fear. Coupled with the tempering of heart demons that Yang Chen deliberately cultivated, the 4 women's Tao hearts became more determined. It could not be said to be a perfect situation, but at least they basically had a way to deal with any heart demons they encountered. All in all, the Yang Chen family can almost be said to have returned with a fruitful experience, especially Yang Chen. Needless to say, there were dozens of demon orbs that surpassed the 1st grade. The smallest one has become the size of a washbasin because of the absorption of demonic Kai in the later stage. Others were even having more different degrees of growth. Speaking of which, these demon orbs have now turned into black demon orbs with demonic Kai, and they still need to be thoroughly purified by Yang Chen before they could be used. There were not many other things in the sea drifting. This time it was a complete departure. There was no plan to continue to come back in the future, so the 4 girls can rest assured and boldly retreat in the shuttle of their husband. On the one hand, they maintained their cultivation, and on the other hand, they thoroughly summarizes his experience in the demon continent. There was no such opportunity on the demon continent. Even if you are not allowed to fight in the gathering point, people are unpredictable, and who knows what will happen. Only by the side of their husband could the 4 women have such a completely relaxed mood. Yang Chen himself, on the other hand, intends to start purifying those demon orbs that were contaminated with demonic Kai. At least before returning to the Dao Sec domain, Yang Chen had to purify the demonic Kai on these demon orbs, otherwise he would not be able to use them at all. In addition, the body of the ultimate demonized demon vine also needs to be dealt with. At least the demonic Kai should be purified first, and the black liquid will not be able to see the light for the time being. Only after processing can it be taken out properly. The body of the ultimate demonized demon vine was naturally too powerful. Yang Chen initially planned to take half of it himself to strengthen his own blood demon vine flying sword, and the other half would be for Abby from the medicine garden to fuse to the brand new blue jasper blood demon vine. If there was no other accident, it would be arranged like this. It is believed that after swallowing and absorbing the body of this ultimate demonized demon vine, the strength of the blue jasper blood demon vine will increase by several levels, and there was no need to worry about anything that could easily hurt him. Although Sun Qingxu was also of the wood attribute, her flying sword has already been completed and was of the first wood attribute, so the demonized demon vine body of the second wood attribute was useless for the flying sword. Not everyone was Yang Chen, and all acquired spiritual roots were full. He can't help but say that just adding up these things was enough for Yang Chen to be busy. But when Yang Chen began to use the power of the 9 nether flying sword to purify the demonic Kai on the demon orb, he realized that his plan still couldn't keep up with the changes. At that time, he didn't pay attention when refining the demonic Kai space point. The demonic Kai attached to the 9 nether flying sword has exceeded the strength of the demonized demon vine before. Basically, as long as the 9 nether flying sword was used, even Yang Chen had to be forcibly suppressed in order to suppress the explosive emotions. If he wanted to continue to increase the strength of the demonic Kai, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness must be improved to continue, otherwise even Yang Chen will not be able to use it freely. The nine nether flying sword was already unprecedentedly powerful, and even Yang Chen didn't dare to use all its power easily. If he wanted to absorb and purify the demonic Kai, he must use the nine nether flying sword. It wasn't that the nine nether flying sword couldn't contain more demonic Kai, but if there was more demonic Kai, even Yang Chen himself couldn't suppress it. Therefore, the matter of purifying the demonic Kai was abandoned halfway before it even started. Naturally, purifying the body of the ultimate demonized demon vine has also become non-existent. Everything related to demonic Kai can't see light, at least before purification, Yang Chen can't use it. If someone gets rid of it as a demon, then it will be worth a loss. Therefore, Yang Chen could only use this period of time to refine and absorb the thousands of demonic fire seeds he obtained on the demon continent. With the speed of the shuttle and the assistance of the water-splitting wings, it would take at least 10 years to return to the Dao Sec domain at the speed on the sea. During this time, it was enough for Yang Chen to absorb and fuse all the fire seeds below the 5th grade. There were still a lot of jade slips in hand, obtained from various sources, most of which Yang Chen has not had time to study carefully. Since Yang Chen was still under the guise of reading a lot of books, he naturally needed to scan it and add some knowledge that he didn't understand in his previous life memory. Most importantly, Yang Chen had never touched the pill recipes that Yang Chen had obtained from the Greatest Heaven sect. Those were precious materials, and they were definitely worth savoring. Above the shuttle, the four women retreated separately, while Yang Chen studied with the jade slip while absorbing the fire seeds. For the four women in retreat, 10 years seemed to pass in a short while. Yang Chen also completely absorbed and merged all the fire seeds below the 5th grade and studied more than 10,000 books. Finally, the shuttle entered the Dao Sec's domain that had been separated from them for more than 60 years. A month or two ahead was the Green Jade Immortal Island. The four women finally came out one after another. In this seclusion, all the four girls have gained a lot. Even if not anything else, their mental state has been greatly improved and even their spiritual power has risen slightly. Seeing that they had returned to the Dao Sec's domain, everyone was full of interest. It felt like a wanderer was returning to his hometown. "Husband, is it okay for us to go back like this?" Perhaps it was because of the timidity of being close to the sect, even shy Zhanxian, who had never cared about things other than cultivation, thought more and asked Yang Chen. "Why is it inappropriate?" Sun Qingxu asked in a puzzled way, not worried about her. Gao Yu and Gongsun Ling were also a little puzzled, and all eyes turned to Shy Zhanxian. Alas. Shy Zhanxian sighed slightly, turned to Sun Qingxu, and asked in a low voice, "What would you do if a stranger suddenly rushed towards you right now?" "I will kill him with one attack." Sun Qingxu replied without hesitation, "Haven't we always been like this on the demon continent?" After answering her own answer, Sun Qingxu immediately noticed something was wrong. On the demon continent, as long as the person was unfamiliar, there was no reason to say anything, they would just attack. The original intention was to kill and gain experience, naturally it doesn't matter how fierce they were. But now they are back to the Dao Sec's domain, if it is also dealt with in this way, it will be a big trouble. Killing at every turn, that's what murderous demons do. Even if it is to eliminate demons and defend the Dai, it is necessary to verify their identity, know the evil deeds of the other party, and cannot do things that are not taught and punished. The problem was that after 50 years of experience in the demon continent, they have become accustomed to the tense situation where they will act immediately if something goes wrong. Suddenly returning to the relatively normal realm of Dao Sects, no one could guarantee that they will be able to hold back from time to time and will not act easily. Speaking of which, this was a kind of war syndrome similar to that of most soldiers who have been on the battlefield. It's just that after the experience in the demon continent, the symptoms will be thousands of times stronger than ordinary war syndrome. The slightest movement will lead to the habitual destruction of the women. All the girls were a little sad, all thought of this question. If this problem is not solved, they will hardly have a foothold in the Dao sect. They don't know how those who have experienced and then left the demon continent dealt with this kind of thing. Most of the experts who have experienced the demon continent will find that they can't adapt to ordinary life after returning to their original places. Yang Chen was about to talk to the girls about this question. Shy Zhanxian asked it first, and he also started to answer. Then how do they overcome it? Sun Qingxu asked eagerly, she didn't know much about it, but she always feels that there must be a better way. There are a small number of people who immediately go into seclusion for a long time after returning, at least for 100 years or even longer, all of which are used to recuperate their emotions. Yang Chen replied with a smile. Hundreds of years to retreat and recuperate, this kind of thing was really cruel to the four girls. Sun Qingxu felt a little bored when she thought about it. Speaking of which, none of the 4 women are retreating madmen, and naturally they will not be used to such methods. What about the majority of people? After hearing Yang Chen say that only a small number of people did this, Sun Qingxu immediately regained her spirits, looking forward to Yang Chen's answer. Most people choose to return to the demon continent and continue to cultivate until they die or ascend through the tribulation. Yang Chen said calmly. These are facts, at least the masters they met at the most central gathering points, almost all had such experiences. It's just that the 4 girls at the time didn't think much about it, just not paying attention, but Yang Chen knew it all. Ah. Sun Qingxu, who was waiting with anticipation for Yang Chen to come up with a good solution, could not help but cry out with regret when she heard that it was like this. If she was allowed to continue to experience on the demon continent until she ascended through the tribulation, it would be a cruel torture to her and all the girls. Don't make fun of little Shu, how can you do that? Gao Yu couldn't stand beside her and couldn't help complaining. Sun Qingxu just remembered that when Yang Chen answered the question, he had always been unhurried and confident. Thinking about his gaffe, she felt a little reluctant at that moment, only acting like a spoiled child she asked Yang Chen to speak quickly. Among the 4 women, only Sun Qingxu would act like a spoiled child by Yang Chen's side. The other 3 women were all older than Yang Chen, and in terms of identity, one was his master and the other was a senior apprentice sister, and Zhanxian was also of the same age as Gao Yu, so they were not allowed to do such a thing. Many times, Yang Chen doted on Sun Qingxu very much. Not only Yang Chen, but also the other 3 women. Seeing Sun Qingxu acting coquettishly, the 3 girls looked at them with smiles, but did not speak or urge. It wasn't until Sun Qingxu acted coquettishly and asked Yang Chen to speak quickly that Yang Chen said with a smile, "Of course your husband has a way, you don't need to retreat and you don't need to go back to the demon continent. As for the solution." Speaking of which, Yang Chen lengthened his tone and began to stop his words. Sun Qingxu was the most anxious and twisted her delicate body in Yang Chen's arms to act coquettishly, insisting that Yang Chen speak out now. "If I say it now, you have to tell the elders if you can't say it and my plan may be affected by then." Yang Chen was very determined, not continuing so, "I can't say, wait for me to take you. After returning to the sect, I will arrange it." This time, the 4 women were not reconciled, but Yang Chen was determined, so he didn't say anything. The 4 girls also seemed to sense something from Yang Chen's attitude. After a while, they stopped asking questions. "When we come back, we must act together. If there is any mistake, I can recover it in time." Yang Chen told the 4 women, "After we go back to meet the seniors of the sect, we will leave. It is estimated that this trip will take decades. This time, let the sect have a mental preparation." Repaying the sect was a trivial matter, but it seems that it was not unacceptable to spend decades to recuperate, especially if they are with Yang Chen all the time. No one would doubt that Yang Chen couldn't do it. Since the 4 women and Yang Chen met, not a word of what Yang Chen said was to deceive them. Since Yang Chen said that it can be solved, then naturally it can be solved. What made everyone curious was how to do this in order to be able to do this. You know, this habit of killing, if you are not careful, you will take away human life. With the strength of the 4 girls now, there were not many colleagues who could withstand their joint blow. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 554. Provocation. The Green Jade Immortal Island was the first sect that they arrived at. Yang Chen's family of 5 naturally wanted to visit them. The reason why they all wanted to be together was that Yang Chen was afraid that the girls would not be able to control themselves under certain circumstances. This was Zhanxian's sect, once something bad was to happen, it would be a big trouble. Now the 4 girls don't seem to have any sense of proportion in controlling themselves. They were used to fighting in the environment of the demon continent, but Yang Chen was by their side, just in case. In addition to the journey by sea, Yang Chen's family left the Dao sect domain this time and went to the demon continent for more than 70 years. As a genius disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island, Zhanxian has always been paid attention to. Everyone knows that she and Yang Chen went to the demon continent and her life source jade tablet did not shatter, which also showed that Zhanxian was still alive. However, exactly what happened to her, no one knew. The first thing Zhanxian did when she returned to the sect was to see her master, then the island master and several core elders. The talented disciple of their own sect went to the demon continent to train and returned successfully, which naturally attracted the attention of the core elders. This was not a mediocre disciple with poor aptitude who must rely on experience in the demon continent to gain opportunities, but the pillar of the sect in the future, especially with the 5th grade alchemy master Yang Chen, it was even a more grand reception. Of course, the elders of the sects will inevitably ask about their experience in the demon continent. Fortunately, the demon continent has organized official lies, so it was not too difficult for them to deal with it. "It's good that you came back. It's good that you came back. The island master's performance was exactly the same as Zhanxian's master. It's good to just come back, but there are always people who have different opinions. They want to know the effect of Zhanxian's experience this time. What's the effect of the experience? Elder Chuan Gong and Elder Bei Xuanju asked directly. Of course, as an elder of the sect, there was nothing wrong with asking such a question. Was it wrong for the elders to care about the younger generation? Elder, the effect is very good. Zhanxian replied respectfully. In front of the elders of the sect, even if Zhanxian was cold-faced, her attitude was still very respectful. When you left, Zhanxian, your cultivation base was similar to your senior sister Li Zhaiki. Now your senior sister Li Zhaiki is in the late Yuning stage, and you are just in the middle Yuning stage. Elder Bei Xuanju pondered for a while, but still felt that the effect wasn't very good. There was no way to define it exactly and immediately thought of a way it's not as good, you should spare with each other and see how big the gap is. Li Zhaiki, senior sister Li mentioned by the elders, was also a well-qualified disciple. This can be seen from her cultivation base growing from the early Yuning stage to the late Yuning stage in just over 70 years. Zhanxian herself said that the effect was good, but in the eyes of everyone, Zhanxian's cultivation base was inferior to that of her senior sister Li Zhaiki. From the point of view of the cultivation base alone, if Zhanxian's growth was just like this, then the experience of the demon continent does not seem to be as surprising as everyone imagines. Spirit power is pure, it has always been taken seriously by the cultivators when they arrived in the spiritual world. There are not many people in the mortal world who are willing to make great efforts to temper them. Everyone was an understanding person, and their real power cannot be measured by the realm of cultivation alone. So, let the two compete against each other and they could really see the gap between the two. The method proposed by Elder Chuan Gong made everyone's eyes shine. No. Including Yang Chen, the 5 members of Yang Chen's family said this sentence in unison. What a joke, Zhanxian was still used to killing at this time, and the ultimate move is easy. If it was one-on-one, Zhanxian will not necessarily lose against a master at the early daching stage. If they let her compete with senior sister Li, it would be beyond deadly. How could this be agreed casually, so Yang Chen and the 4 women all refused in unison. The voices of the 5 people immediately caught the attention of everyone. Everyone didn't know what happened that would make the 5 of them lose their compass or like this. You were gone for a long time to gain experience, it doesn't have any effect, so you don't dare. Immediately, an elder teased in a strange tone. The female elder surnamed Liu who spoke up happened to be Liu Zifang, the master of Li Zhaiki, whom Elder Chuan Gong spoke of. She was already at the peak Yuning stage, she was only one step away from entering the daching stage. Zhanxian's aptitude was good, so she has received a lot of care in the sect. This made a lot of people feel a little unbalanced, and one of them was Elder Liu, the master of senior sister Li Zhaiki. In her eyes, her own disciple has the same outstanding aptitude, but she was only slightly worse than Zhanxian, but their treatment was vastly different. Zhanxian was not pleasing to her eye, she feels that she enjoys privileges. Today, when she encounters such an opportunity, Zhanxian dares not fight. What does this mean? It shows that Zhanxian has a guilty conscience, which shows that she was simply vain. What kind of experience in the demon continent was clearly putting gold on his face. Now that the realm of cultivation was not as good as that of her own apprentice, she still has the face to sit here. If it weren't for the fact that her husband was a 5th-grade alchemist, she would have been reprimanded by all the elders. It just so happened that Zhanxian's weakness also allowed the elders to see her true colors. Today, she must seize this opportunity and let her apprentice humiliate Zhanxian so that everyone can see her true colors. Elder Liu Zifang, who thought so, immediately uttered those teasing words. A few elders who knew her well all laughed in agreement. However, they stopped after laughing a few times. After all, Yang Chen was still there and they didn't want to get in a bad relationship with Yang Chen. Why not? Bei Xuanju felt that the request was not too much, he weighed the disciple's cultivation. Whether in terms of identity or seniority, he was qualified as a gong-passing elder, right? This disciple is accustomed to killing in the demon continent and is afraid that a miss will hurt senior sister Li. How should the disciple deal with it? Zhanxian's personality was not so smooth. It's good that Zhanxian said this, even if the core elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island gave Yang Chen face, they will not force Zhanxian, not to mention that Zhanxian has always been the pride of the sect. But now, as soon as these words were spoken, Liu Zifang was instantly furious. What does this mean? That was to say, her apprentice was not Zhanxian's opponent at all, she was afraid of accidentally hurting her. Was she mistaken? Zhanxian was only in the middle Yuning stage. Her apprentice was already in the late Yuning stage. A middle Yuning stage cultivator was afraid of hurting a late Yuning stage master, how was that possible? Since that's the case, why don't you open my eyes? Elder Liu Zifang changed her words for a while and began to retaliate. To tell the truth, the island master and the other core elders also want to know the effects of training in the demon continent, especially for a genius disciple like Zhanxian. If the effect was really good, they might consider sending a few more in the future. However, Zhanxian's initial refusal made them somewhat disappointed. In particular, the whole Yang Chen family has such an attitude, it seems that it can only explain one thing, that was, they didn't believe in their chances. In other words, the effect of this demon continent was not very good. For the core elders, this was not a big deal, it just proves the inadvisability of a cultivation method, it was no big deal. Anyway, as long as they have a good relationship with Yang Chen, they don't need to care too much about other things. Zhanxian was a genius disciple, and the sect had good hopes for her, but when necessary, it was possible to give up on her. What's more, the water poured out by a married woman was the same for her daughter, not to mention female disciples. The failure of the demon continent's experience may be a mistake. In the beginning, Yang Chen should not be allowed to play around with the 4 women. It was not only Zhanxian that was destroyed, but also Sun Qingxu, a genius disciple of Blue Cloud sect, plus Gongsun Ling, a genius of the Pure Yang Palace. It was said that Yang Chen was not such a reckless person, how could he make such a wrong decision? Could it be that he believed too much in the records in various miscellaneous books and historical materials, so he fell into it? That's right, it must be the case. It was better to believe in books than to have no books. The ancients' words really make sense, even a wise person like Yang Chen would make this mistake. Hearing Zhanxian's next explanation, the island master and the others had another thought in their hearts. She was used to killing and was afraid she wouldn't be able to hold back. It sounds so reasonable, but if you think about it carefully, it was worth pondering. How can a real cultivator have an uncontrollable situation? Just this statement has already explained a lot. Their experience this time was not so perfect, or in other words, not so successful, at least half of them had failed. Sometimes, in a high position, especially in a high position in a big sect like the Green Jade Immortal Island, you have to make a balance. Now that Zhanxian has failed, then they will suffer the consequences of failure. Naturally, Yang Chen, who caused Zhanxian to fail, will also pay a price. The genius disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island shouldn't be ruined like this. Even if Yang Chen was a 5th-grade alchemist, he must accept his lesson. The big deal, after what happened today, they will use other methods to remedy it in the future. But for now, it was still necessary to balance the people within the sect. If that's the case, why don't you just be careful? The island master didn't say anything, but Elder Bei Xuanju seemed to have anticipated the island master's thoughts and said very lightly. Bei Xuanju, who was an elder, said so, while the other core elders nodded slightly. As an outsider, Yang Chen saw the situation, but he sighed slightly in his heart, he knew this earlier. It's better not to go back to the sect first and wait until they recover. In the current situation, Zhanxian has been unable to escape. All the core elders agreed for them to learn from each other, so she could only do it. This disciple urges the island master to give some magic weapons to protect the body, so that senior sister Li can protect herself. Zhanxian doesn't usually like to socialize, but it doesn't mean that she doesn't understand the situation in front of her. Since it was inevitable to do it, then she must find a way to minimize the casualty. If these words were said before the demon continent's experience, given the importance of Zhanxian in the sect, it will naturally not be a problem, and it must be responsive. But now that these words were spoken, everyone's understanding has been discounted. Does it need to be so troublesome? Isn't it just to learn from each other? Liu Zifang's impolite voice sounded again. It's not easy to have a moment of raising your eyebrows and venting out freely, can't you be sorry for yourself? Zhanxian asked you to be careful, why do you say that? Zhanxian's master Song Huan was unhappy for a while. Her beloved disciple was taught such a lesson by Liu Zifang. Even if Zhanxian's experience in the demon continent was unsuccessful, her master hasn't said much here. Where can you get someone else to speak? There's so much nonsense, you won't know if you don't fight. Elder Liu was complacent and she looked at other people's faces. All the people here agreed that Zhanxian and her senior sister Li would spare each other, but Yang Chen, as an outsider, couldn't say anything more. Even if he was Zhanxian's husband, he can't get involved in the affairs of other people's sects. In the eyes of others, it's just a competition between the same sect, how big was it? Zhanxian, try to hold back as much as you can. At this point, Yang Chen couldn't say anything more. He persuaded Zhanxian, but he sighed in his heart, this senior sister Li was really pitiful, sitting at home, but disaster comes from heaven, it was really unfortunate to have such a master. Island master, if you have any magic weapon to protect the body, let them use it. It is best if everyone is safe, so that things don't look bad. After persuading Zhanxian, Yang Chen turned his head and suggested to the island master. Yang Chen's identity was as an honored guest, he was also a distinguished guest that the greatest heaven sect deliberately wanted to win over. When he opened his mouth, it was also out of safety considerations, and no one could say anything. The island master could only nod her head in agreement and ask people to make preparations. However, Yang Chen's words intensified everyone's speculation about Zhanxian. Even Yang Chen said that, so it was estimated that Zhanxian really failed, otherwise it would not get out of control. It was said that it was a body protection magic weapon prepared for senior sister Li, but they also must prepare some for Zhanxian. The one who really wanted protection was Zhanxian. Among the people present in the Green Jade Immortal Island, they can take out a few good body protection magic weapons casually. After a while, more than a dozen kinds of body protection magic weapons were gathered in the hands of Elder Bei. Elder Bei Xuanju was not biased and directly divided them equally according to the number. Zhanxian and Li Zhaiki each had a share. Of course, the competition cannot be in the reception hall, and soon everyone appeared together in a martial arts arena. Li Zhaiki had been called over by Elder Liu Zifang and was standing in the martial arts field, waiting for Zhanxian. Zhanxian turned her head to look at her husband. Yang Chen took a deep breath and nodded towards Zhanxian. Zhanxian didn't say much, she didn't take the body protection magic weapon that Elder Bei gave her, she walked out to the martial arts field. The protective formation on the edge of the martial arts field was activated immediately, surrounding Zhanxian and Li Zhaiki in the center. The two were separated by a distance of more than 10 meters, standing at both ends, waiting to start. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 555. Losing Face. While Zhanxian and Li Zhaiki were waiting for Elder Bei to issue an order, Yang Chen suddenly turned to the island master, bowed to the island master, and the group of elders. Island master, elders, once you make a move, the sword has no eyes, if Zhanxian can't hold back, please forgive her and don't hold her accountable for her reckless behavior. The reason why he only opened his mouth at this time was that Yang Chen was a little angry. Zhanxian was Yang Chen's wife, a properly married wife. If there was any discord in the Green Jade Immortal Island, they can handle it themselves behind closed doors. Yang Chen won't say much. But in front of Yang Chen, they were just burying his wife like this, no one would be able to bear it. As soon as they returned to the Green Jade Immortal Island, he watched Zhanxian being oppressed by Elder Liu Zifang. He didn't even have a few words to enlighten him, Yang Chen couldn't bear it. In this case, it was necessary to make these people suffer a bit. Tigers don't show their power when they were not provoked. Do they really think that Zhanxian was no longer so talented? As for Liu Zifang, if she can really bear the fact of losing her apprentice, that's fine. However, after all, Zhanxian was still a disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Even if she entered the Yang family, she will have to live and cultivate in the Green Jade Immortal Island in the future. She has to hold back her hands when it is time to hold back, but it can't be too much. When the island master listened to Yang Chen's words, her heart sank for no reason, and she suddenly regretted it. Were Liu Zifang and the others going too far today? Zhanxian has just returned from training and has not had time to rest. Before she even had time to finish the experience, she was provoked by Liu Zifang to the point that she had to compete with Li Zhaiki. Anyway, even if Zhanxian really failed in the training, it shouldn't be like this. Even if you don't give face to the cultivator, you should give face to Buddha. Yang Chen was Zhanxian's husband, can he tolerate Zhanxian being bullied so much by others? If this matter affects future cooperation, it will be a bit of a loss. After all, Zhanxian left the Green Jade Immortal Island for too long, it's been more than 70 years. Not to mention that the old people have forgotten, those new disciples have no idea that there was such a cultivator in the sect. From top to bottom, it seems that Zhanxian's amazing talent has been forgotten. From the island master's heart, she doesn't care about Zhanxian's success or failure. To put it another way, the Green Jade Immortal Island could become one of the big sects, and it was not because of one or two talented disciples. From the establishment of the sect by the ancestors to the present, the number of genius disciples who died halfway was definitely not less than 120,000. There were many disciples as talented as Zhanxian. Therefore, the core elders did not really value Zhanxian's success or failure. Success was gratifying, but failure is just to let the sect know that it is better for talented disciples not to go to the demon continent to gain experience, that's all. As long as Zhanxian can maintain her relationship with Yang Chen, it was enough. Out of this consideration, some of Liu Zifang's words were unpleasant, but everyone tolerated them. In fact, the core elders still hope to actually see the effect of Zhanxian's training. Hearing can be false, but seeing is believing. But Yang Chen only said so at this time, the island master had to think more. Even Yang Chen, who was her husband, said so, thinking that it was a relatively high degree of confidence. Liu Zifang and Li Zhaiki didn't seem to be able to ask for it. Yang Chen's attitude was very low, and he pleaded for Zhanxian in advance, but he ran all the core elders into an embarrassing situation, especially Liu Zifang. If Zhanxian really couldn't hold back and seriously injure or kill Li Zhaiki, there was really no way to pursue Zhanxian. People were reluctant at first, and it was Elder Liu who forced the situation. Moreover, even Yang Chen spoke like this, having said that the Green Jade Immortal Island can't do such unethical things. Now everyone remembers how strong Zhanxian was back then. At the Jidan stage, she could compete with the senior sisters at the Yuning stage. Now that she has reached the Yuning period and have been practicing in the killing field of the demon continent for so many years, it was really easy to say that it is not good. It was also very possible that Li Zhaiki would be killed. There is always a winner or loser in a competition, it doesn't matter. The island master couldn't help but express her position. Yang Chen was still waiting here, so she could only wave her hand and give an answer. However, while replying to Yang Chen, the island master did not forget to wink at Bei Xuanju, an elder who was already in the daching stage, and another elder, Min Huifeng. If something goes wrong, the two of them will take care of it. Of course, Elder Bei and Elder Min saw the hint from the island master, and they nodded slightly and began to pay attention. Let's start. Liu Zifang was not stupid, if so she couldn't be an elder. From Yang Chen's mouth, she also heard a trace of something wrong, but up to now, what she said was like water that was poured out and she couldn't take it back. There was no turning back when the bow was given, so she could only fight to the end. The two women in the field immediately took action when they heard Elder Liu announce to begin. Li Zhaiki had already been told by her master that in this contest, Zhanxian must be defeated so that Song Yuan would also lose face. As soon as she heard that, Li Zhaiki started to attack. She had a late Yuning stage cultivation base, and her cultivation base is much higher than Zhanxian. The gap between the late Yuning stage and the middle Yuning stage was not as small as it sounds, and it was normal for the gap in cultivation base to be 1 or 2 times. Her flying sword was summoned out at the fastest speed and slashed towards Zhanxian frantically, with a heavy hand and a fast speed. There was no competition at all, it was completely a posture to kill the enemy. Li Zhaiki was attacking, while Zhanxian was defending. From the bottom of her heart, she is still from the Green Jade Immortal Island, and naturally she does not want to hurt her fellow senior sister. Anyway, when she was in the demon continent, she didn't have less time to be besieged by the demonized monsters in the daching stage. At this time, she was just dealing with a senior sister in the late Yuning stage, it seemed that she could do it with ease. In front of the elders, Zhanxian only defended and did not attack, she repeatedly avoided Li Zhaiqi's series of powerful attacks. The movement technique has been perfected in the demon continent, so there was no need to protect herself with a magic weapon at all, even Li Zhaiqi's attack cannot fall on Zhanxian at all. Zhanxian was often besieged by several demonized monsters in the daching stage in the demon continent. Sometimes, she didn't look good, let alone calm, and was entirely practical. But in the eyes of the elders, it was a look of embarrassment. Speaking of which, it was because the fusion experience had not been fully absorbed after the experience, so these instinctive movements could not be comprehensively summarized. On the demon continent, if only practical, who would pay attention if it was good looking or not? On the other hand, Li Zhaiki had a graceful figure, fluttering clothes, and her flying sword attacked so calmly, just like a fairy. They were also beautiful women, and they were born in the Green Jade Immortal Island, one is calm, and the other is embarrassed. Especially in a sect dominated by women, the aesthetic requirements are better than other sects. Under the circumstances, the two balance between victory and defeat, at least in the minds of most people, has already been biased. Most of the core elders present were at the Yuning stage, which was not much higher than that of Zhanxian. Most of the people in their hearts shook their heads secretly for Zhanxian's performance. This kind of embarrassment, although she can avoid Li Zhaiqi's attack every time, it was already a failure. The experience of this demon continent was really worthless. A female disciple who was originally a full genius was actually ruined like this. Even if you hide, you have to hide beautifully, right? Just take the movement just now, there is a flying sword movement technique in the sect that could dodge Li Zhaiqi's attack very beautifully and delicately, and can also wait for an opportunity to counterattack. This flying sword movement is a basic swordsmanship that can be cultivated in the foundation stage, it was impossible for Zhanxian to not know it. Obviously there were wonderful movements that could counter defense and attack, but Zhanxian didn't use it, but used this kind of vulgar countryman's fight like a village man's move. What was this? Back to basics. How long did it take for the seniors of the sect to create the exquisite swordsmanship? Was it not comparable to her ugly movement like some beast? Talking about the movement method was really too flattering, it's obviously just a subconscious action. They don't know what kind of beast she has learned from, that she even forgot the basic swordsmanship of the sect. She did such self-destructive things, wasn't that what destroying genius was? Most of the elders who had a lot of affection for Zhanxian were extremely disappointed with Zhanxian's performance at the moment. At the same time, there was also a hint of resentment towards Yang Chen, who had forced Zhanxian to go to the demon continent for training. Back then, Yang Chen had a high profile, saying that he was going to bring his wife to the demon continent to experience it for decades. Not only did their cultivation base not grow much, but on the contrary, even the disciples who were not as good as her were now her equal. It was simply deliberately destroying the future hope of the Green Jade Immortal Island. However, those experts in the Daching stage and the few core elders like the Island Master saw a different scene. Zhanxian looks embarrassed, but in fact, she has never attacked actively, she was completely defensive. Even if the flying sword was occasionally used, it would lead the opponent's attacking flying sword away. So that the attack does not fall on herself, from beginning to end, there was not even a single attack. No matter how wonderful Li Zhaiki was, she couldn't hide the result. That was, her attack was futile from beginning to end. Attacks that do not fall on the enemy. Even if it was strong, fast, and powerful, what was the use? But Li Zhaiki didn't seem to know it yet, she had been using this method all the time. At the beginning, some of the experts also felt that Zhanxian's actions were really ugly, but the more they looked at it, the more terrifying the experts felt after they understood the meaning behind Zhanxian's actions. While Zhanxian was guarding against Li Zhaiki, she was on guard against even all the onlookers around her. Just to say that her previous, vulgar, lazy donkey rolling in the eyes of others not only subtly escaped Li Zhaiqi's attack, but even the audience around Zhanxian seemed to be unable to find her weakness if they suddenly attacked. If it was once or twice, it can be said to be a coincidence, but every time Zhanxian's actions were with such intentions, it was really incredible. Except for Yang Chen's family, no one knew what Zhanxian's experience in the demon continent had been. When she was attacked by dozens of demonized beasts at the same time, she wanted to be able to defend against all attacks and to be able to act beautifully. That's not training, that's courting death. After the test of this cruel attack, the body technique of removing the succulent and preserving the essence was only practical, not beautiful. The elders who were watching would not have thought that Liu Zifang had specially instructed Li Zhaiki to make Zhanxian a fool of herself. In the eyes of the master and apprentice, Zhanxian was making a fool of herself. HMPH, some people don't know that the sky is high and the earth is thick, so they ruined the talented disciples of my sect. Not everyone would care about Yang Chen's face, so someone immediately pointed at Sang Hoi and scolded Zhanxian is ruined. Only defending and not attacking, my Green Jade Immortal Island is not like this. Another elder who heard this said immediately, could it be that she was hunted and almost killed on the demon continent for this? This child, Zhanxian, how much suffering did she endure? This was still the core elders who originally favored Zhanxian. It's not easy to say, but it still implies concern. Some of those who stood on Elder Liu's side were no longer so polite, almost sneering. This is the result of the experience. It's good to be defensive and not attacking. An elder who Yang Chen didn't know his identity said, the sect's ingenious movement skills don't need to be used and people don't do it. If you are a beast, the face of the Green Jade Immortal Island shouldn't be thrown away. Ahahaha, if this is the result after going to the demon continent to cultivate, then forget it. Another elder shook her head and sighed earnestly. Lessons. In the future, the disciples of my branch, even if they aren't qualified. No matter how bad it is, you can't go to the demon continent to experience it, it will hurt people. Elder Liu on the side looked at all this with a smile on her face, listening to the surrounding voices, her heart was as comfortable as if she was drinking honey. She didn't even forget to turn her head to Zhanxian's master Song Huan, who was not far away and joked, Sister Song, Zhanxian is really ruined this time. It's your fault that you didn't stop her from going to the demon continent. You can't help but say that Elder Liu's ability for mocking was good. After saying this, after stimulating Song Huan, she immediately turned to Yang Chen. Grandmaster Yang, your level of alchemy is unparalleled in the mortal world, but in terms of cultivation, Grandmaster, you are a little bit worse. Zhanxian. Before Yang Chen said anything, Song Huan on the other side was already furious and shouted at Zhanxian in the field, if you keep defending and not attacking, the faces of your master and your husband will be lost. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 556. Small Attack. Zhanxian, who has been defending and not attacking, naturally heard the words of the elders outside and also heard the angry voice of her master Song Huan. At this point, Zhanxian couldn't bear to be merciful anymore. She turned around and was dodging all over the place just now, but now she was facing Li Zhaiki directly. Hearing Song Huan's voice, the island master knew something would go wrong. She could see what Zhanxian's body technique implied. She was appreciating it carefully and at the same time, she was trying to figure out the intention of Zhanxian every time she avoided an attack. When she suddenly saw Zhanxian's change, she was stunned for a moment. Just like the island master, there were also the masters of the Daching stage. Although Zhanxian can only defend but not attack, her posture was embarrassing, or she can't say any posture at all, but in their eyes, it was a rare good thing that makes people shine. Although Li Zhiqi's attack was beautiful and fierce, in the eyes of everyone, it was as if she and Zhanxian had rehearsed many times, and her defensive movements were extremely skilled. What's even more surprising was that Zhanxian even noticed the elders who are not protected by the surrounding formations, and even their inadvertent actions could cause Zhanxian's subconscious reactions in the circle. But every time in this completely unexpected situation, Zhanxian's comprehensive protection and the reaction that can minimize her own damage simply made all the Daching stage elders intoxicated. This kind of performance even made several Daching stage elders even more addicted. They would make some actions by themselves from time to interfere with Zhanxian, who seems to be in a state of embarrassment. Every time, Zhanxian can respond in a timely manner, act skillfully, and often make some unbelievable cracks. In the eyes of those who do not understand, Zhanxian was simply a clown. She was also a clown dressed as a genius disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Such a performance was from a genius disciple. That genius disciple really did not live up to her name. But in the eyes of those who understand, Zhanxian's performance could only be described as amazing, and some can't express it perfectly. It's just that they cultivate in a place like the Tao sect, which was relatively comfortable and did not have to worry about death all the time. How could they have seen such an unrestrained fighting consciousness? Elder Liu Zifang wished that Zhanxian could be a little more ugly, but the other masters were expecting Zhanxian to show more splendor. Except for those who really care about Zhanxian but can't see it like Song Yuan, no one could bear to let Zhanxian stop at this time. However, Liu Zifang's words irritated Song Yuan, and she was furious. Song Yuan even pulled Yang Chen in and started roaring at Zhanxian. Idiot. A dozen pairs of eyes stared at Liu Zifang angrily, and all the masters who were looking at Zhanxian secretly cursed at Liu Zifang, a woman who was overcomprehensive but still thought she was self-sufficient. Such a wonderful defense was ruined by her in a single sentence. Couldn't she just be happy for a while? Does she have to catch herself getting slapped in the face? However, after the initial dissatisfaction, the experts began to look forward to it. Even defense can achieve this state, so once Zhanxian starts to attack, how exciting will it be? In fact, Zhanxian didn't want to harm her fellow senior sister, so she kept avoiding her. She was looking forward to the seniors, seeing the situation and then ordering them to stop. However, her performance was beyond everyone's expectations. Those who wanted to see her make a fool of herself were reluctant to let her stop, and those who wanted to see her stunning performance were also reluctant to let her stop, which created the current situation. If it was just Zhanxian, she wouldn't care what others said. From the very beginning, she was the unsmiling fairy Hanmei. When did she care about what other people say? But now, those ridicules have fallen on her master and husband, which was not something Zhanxian could bear. Even though she has experienced an emotional outburst of inner demons, she was clearly calm now, and there was no sign of losing control. Even in the demon continent, it was only after being surrounded by a large number of demonized monsters in the Daching stage, but now she was being teased like a monkey by a fellow senior sister who she could kill anytime, anywhere. No matter how well Zhanxian has cultivated herself, she will never endure it at this moment. Most importantly, Zhanxian's style is always to move forward bravely, replacing defense with the strongest attack. If you have to, you will try your best to defend. But this was not in line with Zhanxian's habit, and she has long been impatient. Song Yuan's words instantly became the best catalyst, which completely triggered Zhanxian's anger. At the same time as her figure turned, two sharp eyes were directly fixed on the body of her opponent Li Zhiqi. Li Zhiqi was also a genius disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island. She has always looked down on others. Except for some rare masters, she has never cared about others. When cultivating, Li Zhiqi was also considered hardworking. Even when she went out to cultivate, Li Zhiqi worked extremely hard, eliminating demons and guarding the Tao, without falling behind. However, those who have not experienced the kind of slaughter in the demon continent cannot imagine that kind of environment. All around are enemies who are not afraid of death. Even if a flying sword is equipped with a body, it is not the kind of strong opponent that can be compared with a wise enemy. Just a glance from Zhanxian made Li Zhiqi involuntarily startled. The kind of indifference that, although there was no killing intent but hardly any life in the eyes, was even more shocking than the eyes with killing intent. Not good. The island master suddenly screamed in her heart. At the same time, Elder Bei Xuanju and Elder Min Huifeng also stood up at the same time, they were all aware of the danger. Even Zhanxian's defense was so refreshing, needless to say how thunderous and furious it will be once she attacks. Li Zhaiki, at present, will definitely not be Zhanxian's opponent. Although Liu Zifang always wanted to suppress Zhanxian and suppress Song Huan, she was not a person without eyesight. Her disciple was unable to attack for a long time. She just said that, which also added psychological pressure to Zhanxian. Now the two Daching stage elders stood up, and as soon as this scene came out, she immediately realized that it was not good. But soon Liu Zifang took it for granted that this must be because the two elders were afraid that something would happen to Zhanxian. After all, the time to defend and attack was different, and it is easy to be taken advantage of by the enemy. However, Liu Zifang still loudly reminded her apprentice Zhaiki, be careful. Without Liu Zifang's reminder, the experienced Li Zhaiki also knew how to deal with it at this time. During the battle, the elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island have never had the habit of distracting them during the battle. Seeing that Zhanxian's eyes had changed, Li Zhaiki immediately became vigilant and quietly stimulated a few magic weapons. Li Zhaiki won't be as pedantic as Zhanxian and take the protective magic weapon given by her elders and not take it seriously. With these things, it was an extra layer of insurance which would make Zhanxian more embarrassed. She was also excited now, she was looking forward to the situation where Zhanxian's attack falls on these protective magic weapons refined by the elders and returns without success. She believes that it will be a scene that can cause a lot of people to laugh. It was best that Zhanxian can become a turtle shell that has forgotten her original fierce attack method and the attack is unsuccessful and only knows how to defend herself against the wind and rain, that is the real pride. Li Zhaiki also heard her master's cry. It was almost the same as Liu Zifang's judgment and Li Zhaiki also thought that Zhanxian was a trapped beast, so the smile on her face suddenly became a little more evident. However, Li Zhaiki believes in being stronger first. The performance just now was just to make Zhanxian look ugly and she didn't come up with her most powerful killer move. Since Zhanxian wants to change her style, she will let her be more ugly. The flying sword in the air slightly turned in a circle and quickly chopped off from another angle. This was what Li Zhaiki has practiced for many years, but she has only practiced in front of her master. So this was a new swordsmanship not known to the other elders. 1,000 killing swords. A few elders who were knowledgeable knew Li Zhaiki's swordsmanship at one glance. This 1,000 killing sword was a very advanced flying sword technique of the sect, it could almost be said to be one of the most powerful sword techniques of the sect. Only when the cultivation base reaches the peak wielding stage could there be enough strength to use it, its power was huge, it was not known how much fame it has brought to the Green Jade Immortal Island. Li Zhaiki was only in the late wielding stage, but she had already practiced this sword technique so well that she could use it. Her qualification was absolutely excellent, at the same time, her strength was infinitely close to the peak wielding stage, otherwise she would not be able to control it at all. As soon as the technique was used, the elders who disliked Zhanxian immediately began to shake their heads. It turned out that Li Zhaiki was only teasing Zhanxian before and only at this time did she show her true talents to defeat this girl Zhanxian. Li Zhaiki's 1,000 killing sword attack had already launched an attack, but Zhanxian's counterattack was long overdue. The flying sword that blocks when necessary, suddenly there was a fierce murderous aura. This was not Zhanxian's life source flying sword, the life source flying sword was still being tempered in her sea of consciousness. This was just a familiar flying sword that she used before and its appearance was relatively ordinary. However, the ordinary flying sword suddenly shone with a ray of light that people couldn't look up to, suddenly turned into a golden beam and slashed towards Li Zhaiki. No matter how famous Li Zhaiki's swordsmanship was, no matter how godly Li Zhaiki's current movement was, no matter how skilled Li Zhaiki's swordsmanship was. Thousands of moves, thousands of tricks, there was nothing she could do. Zhanxian's flying sword, which came last, directly cut into Li Zhaiki's chest along an unbelievable angle in the eyes of everyone and went straight to the point of her heart. The sudden change shocked Li Zhaiki. Fortunately, just now, for insurance, she had activated all the protective magic weapons given by her master and elders. In the speed of light, Li Zhaiki couldn't even return the sword to block and could only use the protective magic weapon to receive this strange and unparalleled sword strike. Ding 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 ding, the crisp and pleasant ding ding sounded one after another, almost forming a sound. It was the sound of Zhanxian's flying sword slashing hundreds of times on several body-protecting magic weapons at an unpredictable speed. Among the stunned expressions of the crowd, Zhanxian's flying sword, which had turned into a golden glow, was not far from Li Zhaiki's body. Almost every flicker was accompanied by a harsh attack. Unable to hit a single blow, she immediately switched to an attack angle without hesitation. Every attack was full of pure and incomparable spiritual power that has been deliberately tempered by Zhanxian in the past few decades. After each sound, it represents the protection magic weapon that was hit and the light must be dimmed. The use of protective magic weapons also requires spiritual power. Even though Li Zhaiki was already in the late Yuning stage and was infinitely close to the peak Yuning stage, she has not yet been able to replenish the spiritual power needed for protective magic weapons immediately after accepting Zhanxian's attack. Zhanxian's attack was really too fast and each attack was too sharp. In just over 100 or so short strokes, those protective magic weapons had no spiritual support and the rays of light were all gathered. Zhanxian's attack did not mean to stop at all and was still controlling the flying sword to make hundreds of consecutive slashes. Now the attack didn't fall on Li Zhaiqi's body just because of the strong material of the protective magic weapon itself. Tests from all angles and all directions have allowed Zhanxian to quickly grasp the weakest parts of these protective magic weapons. In the last few moments, the sound of ding 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 turned into a shattering sound, the surrounding people couldn't even react to what was happening, the few protective magic weapons have been completely destroyed by Zhanxian. In the end, Zhanxian has always firmly remembered that this was learning from the same sect, not to fight against a deadly enemy. After smashing the protective magic weapon, Zhanxian basically stopped the sword light and with a flick of her figure, she dodged the flying sword that Li Zhaiki had just slashed over in front of her and waved her hand to launch just one punch. This was a pure spiritual attack, but at this moment, all Li Zhaiqi's protective magic weapons were shattered, and when the souls of the dead were on the verge of death, there was no longer the elegance of the past. Boom, Zhanxian's fist, carrying an incomparable spiritual power, directly hit Li Zhaiqi's hands. Pacha-kacha, accompanied by two sounds of shattering bones, Li Zhaiqi's hands were punched back to her chest by Zhanxian. After another sound of shattering bones, Li Zhaiki spit out a mouthful of bright red blood, her whole body flew up. Just as Zhanxian was about to stop, her figure flashed and the flying sword, which had just stopped, suddenly accelerated and slashed towards a figure that suddenly appeared beside her. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 557. Extreme Counterattack. Zhanxian's habit of fighting the enemy has been to kill if she can, or run if she can't. Now even if she was more restrained, it was to subdue the opponent and make the opponent lose the ability to attack. With one punch, Li Zhaiki was severely injured. When she was in the demon continent, this kind of unexpected situation appeared endlessly. Not to mention whether she had just killed her opponent and suddenly a demonized monster rushed out from another direction. It was not unusual for the beast to suddenly come alive like a cramp. Sometimes, it was not uncommon for such a situation to often occur when the key points of the demonized monster are not sure. This has also cultivated the habit of Yang Chen's family to be vigilant at all times when they do something, ready to be a powerful killer or run away at any time. The habit that has been cultivated on the edge of life and death for decades, how can it be easily quit after more than 10 years of retreat at sea? When encountering a stimulus, there will be a subconscious reaction, which has nothing to do with thinking or sanity at all, but is purely an instinctive action. The sudden appearance of an unexpected figure in front of her directly inspired Zhanxian's habit and she started attacking subconsciously without even thinking about it. The first thing Zhanxian destroyed was the body protection magic weapon that Li Zhaiqi's master, Liu Zifang, Elder Liu gave her. This magic weapon was refined by Liu Zifang herself and naturally she had a clearer sense about it than others. As soon as the magic weapon was broken, Liu Zifang knew that it was not good. With the speed Zhanxian showed just now and the power of destroying the magic weapon, she already fully understood that her own disciple was not Zhanxian's opponent at all. In the beginning, she only defended and not attacked, just to give her the face of the master and the apprentice, and did not want to destroy the harmony. It was a good thing, as long as Li Zhaiki didn't act so aggressively, and if she held on for a while, Zhanxian would be defeated and Li Zhaiki would go down the hill. However, Liu Zifang's ridicule directly stimulated Song Huan and also caused Song Huan to fight back in anger. This time it's good, all face was lost. This was still a trivial matter, as soon as her own protective magic weapon was broken, Liu Zifang realized that the life of her disciple was at stake. Being able to smash the body protection magic weapon that she had worked so hard to refine in such a fast time, the attack power was simply beyond her imagination. For the sake of her disciple's life, Liu Zifang could only go out in person to snatch Li Zhaiki back. Otherwise, wouldn't it be bad if Zhanxian made a murderous attack? But Liu Zifang would not have thought that she suddenly rushed to intervene, she directly provoked Zhanxian's fighting instinct. The sanity that she had been encouraged to maintain was suddenly rushed and she immediately returned to her habit and instinctively regarded this place as a demon continent and attacked without hesitation. As a master of the PQing stage, he will be a master of tribulation and ascend, and Liu Zifang is of course one of the masters in the Green Jade Immortal Island. After rushing out, she found that Zhanxian immediately started to attack and then saw the blood spurting from her disciple's mouth. Her mind paused for a while and then anger immediately filled her chest. Liu Zifang's flying sword appeared in front of her in an instant and she slashed towards Zhanxian regardless. Isn't this just learning from the same sect? As for taking such a heavy hand. In Liu Zifang's mind, she would never think that her as the master and her apprentice would take the blame for this, she would never realize that it was Zhanxian's mercy just now. She just saw that Zhanxian punched her own disciple and was seriously injured. The anger caused by this has also become another factor that stimulated Zhanxian. Almost like a reflection, Zhanxian's flying sword greeted her. Bing, with a crisp sound, the sound of the two flying swords colliding did not last long, the flying sword controlled by Zhanxian led away Liu Zifang's flying sword. Afterwards, everyone watched the flying sword turn around quickly, directly towards Liu Zifang's neck. The sound of flying sword cutting through flesh and blood was so harsh in the exclamations of the surrounding people. A bloodstain appeared on Liu Zifang's throat. Ding, ding, two consecutive sounds, Zhanxian's flying sword suddenly bounced off Liu Zifang's throat, then turned in the air and returned to Zhanxian's side in a flash. Two figures suddenly appeared, it was Elder Bei Xuanju and Elder Min Huifeng who were paying attention to the battle. The two moved at almost the same time, blocking Zhanxian's flying sword before Liu Zifang's head was about to be cut off. Even so, Liu Zifang's throat was also cut open, the trachea was cut directly, most of the blood vessels were cut open, and blood poured out like a fountain. Liu Zifang's face was full of disbelief, both hands tightly covering her throat, the throat clucked, but she couldn't make any other sound, and her body began to slowly collapse. Elder Min Huifeng, who had already rushed up, grabbed Liu Zifang's body and threw it directly to the place where the hallmaster of the medicinal hall was located in the outer circle, and she and Bei Xuanju rushed forward one after the other. In the same way, Bei Xuanju threw Li Zhiqi's body outside and asked everyone to give first aid. Everyone around was taken aback by this change. The head of the medicine hall saw Liu Zifang's body flying towards her. She hurriedly caught it in midair and opened Liu Zifang's hands covering her throat. Fortunately, a master at the PQing stage did not directly slap her head like this, but only shallowly incised the trachea and blood vessels, which would not be fatal immediately. Under the rapid treatment of the medicinal hallmaster, she was able to save her life. Zhanxian was already stimulated again and habitually attacked Elder Bei and Elder Min who were rushing up. During the battle, she was always on guard against the people around her. At this moment, she was not flustered at all, just fighting to the fullest. Bei Xuanju was fast and rushed in front. She had only just consolidated her realm when she was promoted to the Daching stage, and when Zhanxian attacked Liu Zifang, she temporarily gave up on Li Zhiqi, allowing her to successfully save her. Now Elder Bei's whole mind was to suppress Zhanxian first and then slowly guide Zhanxian to stop. With Elder Bei's cultivation base in the early Daching stage, there would be no problem in suppressing a disciple in the middle Yuaning stage, she could even suppress Zhanxian easily, so that she would not be injured. The idea was good in Bei Xuanju's heart, in the heart of Elder Min, and even in the hearts of the core elders, people who were watching probably all have this plan, except for the Yang Chen family. However, everyone underestimated Zhanxian, and Elder Bei, who rushed up, immediately felt the power of Zhanxian. The flying sword moved around towards Elder Bei's throat. Elder Bei has already prepared for the flying sword, which was to first block. When the flying sword was knocked flying by Elder Bei's flying sword, Elder Bei was about to charge forward, but suddenly she noticed a sharp wind blade at her waist and slashed over, her body froze, and her flying sword turned towards the wind blade. Zhanxian's attack was more than just flying swords. When she was in the demon continent, she was simply kicking her head and her feet. This was also a habit, it was still a habit of being besieged. Now there are people around Zhanxian on guard and two people have already rushed up. Instinctively, Zhanxian's first reaction was to knock down the first one with the fastest speed and then meet the second one. This was the experience of being under siege summed up in countless moments of life and death. One less enemy would make things easier, so all means must be used and there was no room for them to hold. On the demon continent, the demonized beasts will not tell you morals, nor will they give you any chance. Even if they are seriously injured, when they can bite you, they will never let go. In fact, before Yang Chen's family left, Zhanxian had been caught in this kind of siege more than once. The position where the four girls were at that time had exceeded the depth that their strength should normally reach, and the opponents could tear them into pieces anytime, anywhere, so there was no reason for any hesitation. At this moment, Zhanxian was in such a state, so she used all the killer moves without hesitation. A cultivator could kill not only with flying swords, but any magic weapon, even empty hands can use some spells. Ordinary wind blades, if slashed at a dashing stage master like this, will be defeated and scattered immediately. But Zhanxian's wind blade, the spiritual power was so pure, if Elder Bay was slashed, it was only slightly swayed and did not dissipate, but changed direction and continued to attack Elder Bay. While Elder Bay was dealing with a wind blade, at least 4 more rays of light, 2 bracelets and 2 hairpins, flew out of Zhanxian's body and attacked. But Zhanxian's body didn't stop at all, almost with those magic weapons, not a step behind, and she also rushed up. Spiritual power attack, no matter how strong it was, can't be stronger than the destructive power of fist to flesh. At this time, even the body was the most powerful weapon. Since the Breathtaking stage, she has mainly devoted herself to seclusion and cultivation, so Elder Bay, who rarely participates in battles, has not encountered such a fierce and deadly style of fighting. Although blocking the attack of the flying sword and the magic weapon did not make her appear to be in a hurry, Zhanxian's rushing forward attack also made her extremely uncomfortable. Boom, a dashing stage master was a dashing stage master. The power that just broke Li Zhiqi's arm and chest with a punch just made a loud noise in front of Elder Bay and then was blasted back by the same fist from Elder Bay. While Elder Bay blocked Zhanxian's fist, her heart twitched for a while. Zhanxian, how did this little girl cultivate, even 2 punches made her, a master of the dashing stage, feel the pain in her fists and her phalanx even cracked, but under this kind of movement, no one else noticed it. After just receiving 2 punches, Elder Min, who was behind Elder Bay, had already followed. She thought this was the situation where Zhanxian was being suppressed, but suddenly a sudden change occurred. The 2 hairpins that stabbed at Elder Bay turned and stabbed towards Elder Min. Elder Min used her flying sword to easily block the 2 hairpins. At this moment, the 2 bracelets and the 2 hairpins that Zhanxian issued suddenly exploded. It was Zhanxian who did not hesitate to directly blow the 4 magic weapons that took a lot of time and effort to refine. In the demon continent, nothing outside of one's body can compare to one's own life. Therefore, in such a situation, it must be self-destructing magic weapons to gain a chance of survival. The distance was so close, the power of the magic weapon self-destruction could even hurt some dashing stage demonized monsters on the demon continent, needless to say here. Unprepared, Elder Bay was directly shocked by the spiritual power blown by the fragments of the 2 bracelets. She was about to adjust, but her face changed drastically and her body flashed. Immediately, she felt a pain in her shoulder and a golden beam flew out from her shoulder. It was Zhanxian's flying sword that pierced directly from the back of the shoulder blade and came through to the front. Zhanxian was simply unreasonable. Just as Elder Bay's hand was on her shoulder, when the pain was excruciating, fists formed by the 2 plain hands slammed into Elder Bay's rib from a strange angle. Boom, the sound of 2 dull fists hitting the body rang out and 2 thorn-like spiritual powers pierced into Elder Bay's body. The FFT, a mouthful of blood spurted out of Elder Bay's mouth, her eyes looked at Zhanxian with an incredible look, but her body slowly fell down uncontrollably. Shoo, a circle of aura suddenly flashed around Elder Bay's body, Elder Min next to her had already sacrificed a shield-shaped magic weapon in time to protect Elder Bay. This shield has only just appeared and the golden light transformed by the flying sword immediately slashed on top of the shield. If it weren't for the timely appearance of the shield, Elder Bay would have been directly cut into 2 pieces. When she missed a hit, Zhanxian immediately retreated, which had become an instinctive habit. At the same time, her flying sword attacked the vital point of Elder Min, who was rushing up without thinking. Attacking the enemy will save you, it was also one of the ways to protect yourself. After all, Elder Min Huifeng was already in the middle dashing stage and will soon enter the late dashing stage, so she often goes out to gain experience. Relying on the superb cultivation base and her life source flying sword, she desperately resisted Zhanxian's omnipresent attack like a lunatic. Even in the face of the elders of the dashing stage, Zhanxian did not flinch and in one-on-one situations, even always caused a series of accidents to the Elder Min Huifeng. All kinds of unimaginable attack methods emerged one after another and the fighting spirit was so strong that even Elder Min felt a lot of pressure. The core elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island have been stunned. Who would have thought that a disciple who seemed to be only in the middle Yuaning stage and who had just entered the middle Yuaning stage would actually— The most shocking thing was that in the battle between this disciple and the middle dashing elder, she actually took the initiative and suppressed Elder Min, only with the power to resist. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 558. What punishment? Zhanxian, Elder Min is not an enemy. During Zhanxian's vigorous attack, Yang Chen's voice was very soft but very clear and inserted into the battlefield. Zhanxian was just stimulated by her fighting instinct and she didn't lose her mind completely. When she was one-on-one, she was less nervous. At this moment, with Yang Chen's voice, Zhanxian immediately sensed her situation and hurriedly stepped back and stopped. Zhanxian has attacked an elder, I asked the island master to punish me. When she realized what had just happened, Zhanxian was in a hurry and hurriedly bowed in the direction of the island master and pleaded guilty. To be honest, from when Zhanxian started attacking to knocking down Li Zhaiki, Liu Zifang and Elder Bei, it was only a few short moments, and even the real fight was only a few breaths. It wasn't until she was finally stopped by Elder Min that the fight took a little longer. This one-hit kill technique was very much in line with the way everyone has experienced in the Demon Continent, where there was no room for mercy and retreat, every attack must be done with the utmost effort to kill the enemy. Unexpectedly, it was used against a person of the same sect, which directly caused such consequences. But punishment. You didn't have to compete with them. Zhanxian's master Song Yuan also broke out at this time. She has not spoken much for her disciples because Zhanxian earned her own status in the Green Jade Immortal Island. But this time, Zhanxian had been away for too long and a group of people had forgotten the amazing talent of this outstanding female disciple back then, so they had to force her to do something to cause such consequences. Coupled with Liu Zifang's cynicism just now, it's no wonder Song Yuan didn't break out. But speaking of it, Zhanxian was indeed not in the wrong. From the very beginning, Zhanxian refused to accept the contest and even Yang Chen said that there were some drawbacks, lack of control, and being unable to stop. If Zhanxian was punished for this reason at this time, then the Green Jade Immortal Island would be a big shame in front of Yang Chen. The island master did not reply for a long time. In fact, it was not only the island master, all the core elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island who were watching were all dumbfounded. In the Daching stage and Yuning stage, the state of mind was so important that even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them, they would remain unchanged, but what happened in front of them was beyond everyone's imagination, they couldn't help but be shocked. Zhanxian was only a disciple in the middle Yuning stage, and it seems that she has just entered the middle Yuning stage, at most, she has just consolidated her cultivation base. But it was such a disciple who, at an astonishing speed, within a few breaths, shattered nearly 10 protective magic weapons that were made by the core elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island, and punched a disciple of the late Yuning stage, severely in a coma with one punch. Next, in another attack, she cut the neck of a late Yuning stage elder by more than half. If the two Daching stage elders hadn't acted quickly, Liu Zifang would have been headed directly. The most surprising thing was that Elder Bei Xuanju was also punched to the point of vomiting blood within a few breaths. If Elder Min Huifeng hadn't picked it up in time, there might have been more terrifying consequences. Even in front of Elder Min in the middle Daching stage, Zhanxian did not show any signs of timidity. The continuous attack did not fail at all and even forced Elder Min to take the defensive. The series of violent attacks made even Elder Min feel the chill. Taken all together, it turned out to be the means of a disciple in the middle Yuning stage. It's ridiculous that a lot of elders from the Green Jade Immortal Island really thought that Zhanxian had failed in the experience. The scene where Yang Chen's family said no in unison will now remind everyone, and almost all of them can't help blushing. These young people knew from the very beginning that this would be the result, otherwise, Yang Chen would not have let the island master send someone to pay attention before the contest started. The group of people who had just ridiculed them were all frightened like quails. They didn't dare to say a word, not even a single sound. Can't they just drop their heads down to their chests and never have to lift them up? Would they still have to face Zhanxian and Yang Chen's family? The island master and the elders at the Daching stage were equally shocked. Even though they had seen it at first, Zhanxian's defense was an eye-opener, but they never thought that when Zhanxian started to attack, it would be so terrifying. Zhanxian pleaded guilty at first, but the island master didn't even react at once until Song Yuan's loud voice reached everyone's ears, and then she reacted. "Zhanxian, you get up first." Zhanxian still fell to the ground, and the island master stretched out her hands to help her, trying to make her voice seem calm. However, no matter how calm she was, there was still some trembling in her voice. This is not fear, but trembling with excitement. Her own disciple, after arriving from the Demon Continent, has such an outstanding performance. Does that mean that, if possible, the disciples of the Green Jade Immortal Island will have one more excellent performance like this? Zhanxian stood up according to her words, Song Yuan had already come out and she took her beloved disciple back to the seat without saying a word. Until Zhanxian returned to her original seat, there was still an uneasy look on Zhanxian's face. In Song Yuan's eyes, she felt even more pity. "Don't be afraid, you didn't do anything wrong in this matter. If you are wrong, it is also Elder Liu's fault, don't worry." Song Yuan comforted her apprentice rarely, but looked at the island master again, waiting for her to speak. The island master could only smile bitterly in her heart. This situation was not easy to handle. In theory, Zhanxian was indeed in the right. She said from the beginning that they should not compete, and Yang Chen also said beforehand. Since the Green Jade Immortal Island still has to insist, then Zhanxian can't be blamed for her heavy hand. However, Zhanxian directly injured 2 elders and a senior sister with these few strokes. It was really unreasonable for Zhanxian to use such a heavy hand when they were sparring with each other. If Zhanxian was not punished, how can she convince the public? This doesn't count as taking care of Yang Chen's face. In front of the husband, she has to punish his wife, anyone else would be unhappy. It's fine if it's an ordinary person. The question is, was Yang Chen an ordinary person? The only 5th grade alchemist in the mortal world and an important partner of the sect, the Green Jade Immortal Island, could not ignore Yang Chen's thoughts no matter what. If I knew this earlier, why would I bother? The island master smiled bitterly in her heart and sighed secretly. In the final analysis, everyone still didn't have enough confidence in Zhanxian and Yang Chen. It has been more than 70 years since Zhanxian disappeared, and some things in the sect have always changed. People who never appear will inevitably be marginalized. Some people took the opportunity to make trouble, but the core elders were dissatisfied with Yang Chen, who forcibly took Zhanxian to gain experience because they underestimated Zhanxian's experience and they wanted to suppress her, which led to this embarrassment at the moment. After such a short time, Elder Bei had already been healed, while Li Zhaiki was still in a coma. On the contrary, Liu Zifang remained awake all the time, and after being healed by the elder, her internal organs did not suffer any more damage. At this moment, when Liu Zifang saw that her disciple was still in a coma and was seriously injured, she didn't know what the situation was, she felt a burst of anger in her heart. Second-class disciples who have committed murder against people of the same sect should be handed over to the law enforcement hall to be severely punished. Elder Liu had already forgotten that she had almost walked between life and death just now, regardless of the size of the wound on her chest, she stood up and shouted sharply. Elder Liu's voice directly attracted everyone's attention to her. The island master was suffering from a headache when Elder Liu shouted, she suddenly frowned. In the final analysis, the initiator was still Liu Zifang. Bei Xuanju just mentioned that Zhanxian's cultivation is not as good as Li Zhaiqi's, so Elder Liu jumped out and insisted on forcing Zhanxian to fight. Zhanxian was only defensive and not attacking at the beginning, which clearly gave enough face to everyone at the Green Jade Immortal Island. At this point, everyone took a step back and pretended to be undefeated and ended peacefully. As a result, Liu Zifang and her friends had to stimulate Song Huan, she even pointed a finger at Yang Chen. This is fine, but the 2 master and apprentice went up together, saying something unpleasant, and going up is the thing that was killed by Zhanxian. This will even jump out, they really don't know how to live or die. Before the island master raised her eyebrows, the Yang Chen family over there was no longer dependent, Zhanxian was fine. However, Yang Chen and the other 3 women glared at Liu Zifang in unison. In Yang Chen's eyes, there was a hint of murderous intent and he stared straight at Liu Zifang. Liu Zifang just shouted and suddenly felt a piercing cold. It was a feeling of fear that people radiated from the depths of their hearts, as if they had been stared at by the demons in the depths of hell, the fear that their life and death could not be controlled by themselves. A dangerous feeling of life and death just now came back to Liu Zifang's mind again. At this time, Liu Zifang only remembered that they were going to kill her, it's just a trick. Having never wandered between life and death, it was impossible to understand the great terror between life and death. Suddenly, Elder Liu broke out in a cold sweat. Her body also began to tremble involuntarily. At first she was just trembling, but soon, even her jaws could not be gritted, there was a gurgling sound. Elder Liu's abnormality immediately alerted the core elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Only then did they remember that Zhanxian did not go to the training alone, but went with Yang Chen's family of 4. In addition to Zhanxian, there will be people who have experienced the same experience as Yang Chen and the 3 women. From the looks of it, Yang Chen's cultivation base was similar to Zhanxian. Except for Yang Chen, who was slightly lower, everyone else was in the middle Yuning stage. To be able to frighten Elder Liu into such a state with just their eyes, the elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island didn't realize that the young people on the opposite side were all silver-colored spearheads. It was absolutely impossible that only their own disciple was outstanding. Sun Qingxu and Gongsun Ling have always been talented disciples of their respective sects. They have also gone through the same situation on the Demon Continent. Even if there is a gap with Zhanxian, they believe the difference is limited. Zhanxian's words come first, what's the guilt? The island master made a decision with the fastest speed, with a wave of her jade hand, she announced the result loudly. No matter from which point of view, there was no reason to punish Zhanxian's crimes. Not mentioning that she had already said something in advance, just that she only defended and did not attack for so long, and she gave enough face, she could not be punished. What's more, Zhanxian was originally a genius disciple of the sect, and the sect regarded her as a hope for the future. Why would they ruin their own hope for a mediocre elder and a relatively mediocre disciple? Such an outstanding disciple, it is too late to love her, how can they destroy the Great Wall themselves? The Green Jade Immortal Island is not the kind of sect that makes one's disciples feel chills and cannot do things that hurt relatives and enemies. But the decision of the island master, the little pressure that everyone felt just now disappeared without a trace. Elder Liu finally took a breath and his body stopped shaking. Only at this time did Elder Liu realize that she had been holding her breath for a while, not even daring to breathe. The pressure will disappear. After letting out a long breath, Elder Liu felt that her legs were weak and she fell down and sat down directly. Sweat soaked through her heavy clothes and the back of her vest was cold. Several young juniors actually frightened her, a late Wielding stage elder, into this state. If that's the case, even without the need for others to do it, a few people can crush her just by releasing their aura. After thinking about this, Elder Liu's face turned pale and she didn't dare to make a sound for a while. At this moment, the island master and the core elders have already developed countless interests in the experience of the demon continent, it only takes 70 years. If you leave it on the road and go back and forth, it will take only 50 years to turn a Wielding stage disciple into this. The mystery of this must be carefully understood. But now was obviously not the best time, the island master can only announce the end of this gathering and then, together with a few core elders, bring Yang Chen's family to the back to discuss in detail. This experience has such an impact, how is it possible to go back to being normal? Elder Min Huifeng never expected Zhanxian to have such an achievement in the demon continent. What she wanted to know most now was how this kind of thing was possible to overcome. As long as you retreat for a long time and slowly get used to a normal life. Yang Chen didn't say much in front of the elders of the Green Jade Immortal Island, but used this statement to prevaricate actually, it is a long-term habit, long enough to not be a problem. Yang Chen's words reassured everyone for a while, as long as they could solve it. Even if it takes a little time, the effect is so outstanding, it was definitely worth it. What everyone wants to know most now is whether this kind of experience was possible for a large-scale organization. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 559. It's not necessary. Yang Chen's answer made all the senior officials of the Green Jade Immortal Island startled. Was it unnecessary, then why did the Yang Chen family go by themselves then? It's very dangerous, and there is death at every corner. Yang Chen continued, we have a top-level defensive magic weapon in our hands, as well as a very fast-flying shuttle, so we can escape if we can't fight, others may not have such conditions. This was true, Yang Chen's flying shuttle was also famous among the cultivators, and everyone knows the risks of the demon continent, but at this time, they were blinded by Zhanxian's great success, and they chose to forget it. What if we let an expert lead the team? Elder Min asked with anticipation. If you go in a group, you will definitely be attacked by a group. Yang Chen shook his head directly. No one likes having a powerful organization in the demon continent. How about a few people? Elder Min asked again, in fact, she already had the answer in her heart. It's not worth it, taking a few people and taking care of them from time to time will not achieve the original intention of the experience. Yang Chen still shook his head. Besides, if there is no such relationship as mine, it is difficult to stay there. Not all the words have been said, but everyone has already understood that in the demon continent, almost everyone has to be on guard. No wonder Zhanxian didn't forget to guard against the elders around when she was fighting, this was already a habit. Even the intimacy of being surrounded by husband and wife is like this, not to mention other relationships. Who knows what will happen? It's not that the Green Jade Immortal Island has not been to the demon continent to experience it, but the achievement was not as good as Zhanxian, at best, it has turned an unqualified disciple into an expert. But as one of the 5 major sects, was there a shortage of experts? This issue is already over. After all, this kind of sect was not so convincing that this kind of sect let its disciples risk death. But voluntarily, why bother with a sect organization, just go if you want, no one will stop you. Next, Yang Chen also indicated to the island master and other senior officials that his family would go into seclusion to solve the problem of their fighting habits, no one objected to this. Anyway, no matter what Zhanxian said, she was still a member of the sect. If they solved the problem, it was just to add a master to the sect. After lingering in the Green Jade Immortal Island for some time, Zhanxian asked her master for something and gave advice to her apprentice before embarking on the journey with Yang Chen and the others again. Although ordinary disciples do not know what happened, the higher-ups are aware of it. Zhanxian's status in the sect has skyrocketed and wherever she goes, she would be respected. Countless disciples wanted to get a few words from Fairy Hanmei, and even the elders who had other thoughts in the past completely dispelled their previous thoughts. Soon, Yang Chen's family left the Green Jade Immortal Island, and this time they went straight to the Blue Cloud sect. Sister Zhanxian, in the Blue Cloud sect, no one dares to treat me like that. Sun Qingxu began to tease Shy Zhanxian after walking out of the Green Jade Immortal Island, showing her superiority. Why? Shy Zhanxian seemed more calm after going through the previous events. In a short period of time, she has seen a lot of things and has more things to consider. Because your master is not strong enough. Sun Qingxu said with a smile, and you won't be coquettish to please your master, you won't be coquettish to please your husband. That last sentence was a complete joke. However, the master mentioned above was not strong enough, it was the real essence. Shy Zhanxian's master Songhuan, her cultivation base was not very high, and her status in the sect itself was not very high. For Shy Zhanxian's guidance, to be honest, it was really not as important as Yang Chen's. Because of this, it can be said that most of Shy Zhanxian's status was obtained by her own efforts. When something happened, Songhuan's words were not enough. But Sun Qingxu was different, her master was now a master of the Daching stage, Hua Wanting, and she was also a powerful master of the Daching stage, who had fought with the blood demon Vine for hundreds of years. She was one of the few powerful figures in the sect. If others want to move against Sun Qingxu, they must first consider Hua Wanting's reaction. If Yang Chen's role was taken into account, no one would dare to give Sun Qingxu a hard. This was also Sun Qingxu's confidence. It was because of so much consideration that she dares to make fun of Shy Zhanxian. Of course, they have experienced life and death hardships themselves, and they have helped each other in the same boat. Knowing that you will please husband, be careful that I will let husband spank your ass. Gao Yu next to her laughed and scolded, and then turned to Shy Zhanxian, don't worry about it. Shy Zhanxian also understood that this was because Sun Qingxu and the others were deliberately trying to relieve her, because they were afraid that she would be unhappy because of the sex affairs. She smiled and nodded, indicating that it was okay. With master's strength, how can one's strength be more convincing? Yang Chen on the side handed Shy Zhanxian a cup of hot tea brewed by himself and said with a smile, little Shu, if your sister Zhanxian is unhappy, I can only beat your ass in front of her to calm her down. Sun Qingxu refused to obey at the moment and said in a sullen voice that Yang Chen was biased, and the family began to laugh. There was a warm smile on Shy Zhanxian's face, that little unpleasantness was long overdue. However, the truth was as Sun Qingxu said. When they went to the Blue Cloud sect, the Blue Cloud sect attached great importance to them, they only carefully asked about Sun Qingxu's situation and discussed it with Yang Chen, but there was no sign of a glimpse of the situation in the Green Jade Immortal Island. When Elder Hua waited for her disciple to return, she smiled when she was happy and wished she could tie Sun Qingxu to her belt wherever she went and never wanted to be separated for a moment. Others didn't say they want to test Sun Qingxu, even if they have a little doubt, they were directly pushed back by Elder Hua. The apprentice of this old lady herself hasn't said anything yet, where will it be your turn to point fingers? As for the result of the experience, Elder Hua has no plans to share it with others. She just knows it herself, Sect Master Lu knows it, and others don't need to pay attention. Of course, Elder Hua also clearly understood the disadvantages of the killing syndrome from Yang Chen, which made her very worried. However, Yang Chen said that he had a solution, although Elder Hua was reluctant, she still let Sun Qingxu linger in the sect for more than a month, and then let Sun Qingxu leave with her husband again. Before leaving, Elder Hua did not forget to threaten Yang Chen that he must be nice to her disciple, otherwise he would face trouble. After leaving the Blue Cloud sect, Sun Qingxu's proud smile was no less. The sect's attitude towards her and the Green Jade Immortal Island attitude towards Shy Zhanxian gave her such a proud sensation. However, after seeing the treatment Yang Chen received after returning to the sect, even Sun Qingxu could only see admitted shyly that her husband's status was still high. The master of the Pure Yang Palace, with a group of elders, waited in person outside the gate of the sect hall. It was like a hero welcoming with triumph. There were no doubts, not even a single question, just everyone talking happily about their return. This was the Pure Yang Palace. Naturally, it was difficult for Shy Zhanxian and Sun Qingxu to participate on some occasions. Yang Chen settled them in his small courtyard and let them rest first, and then he and the sect master and other core elders met again. In the 70 years since he left, the sect has undergone great changes. If nothing else, the number of houses in Myking Mountain seems to be several times larger. From this point, he can see how the Pure Yang Palace is prospering. The size of the disciples has almost increased by more than 10 times, and these are only the newly promoted disciples, not counting the members of the monster race's eccentric hall. On the basis that Yang Chen had laid in the past, the masters of the Pure Yang Palace began to emerge slowly. In the past 70 years, Elder Gao Shilin also successfully survived the tribulation and was promoted to the Daching stage. On the other side of the Banyan Tree Immortal Cave, there was also a monster cultivator who broke through and entered the Daching stage. The number of masters in the Daching stage increased by 2, and the number of masters in the Yuanying stage increased by hundreds, including the human race and the monster race. They were all promoted over the years with the help of Yang Chen's medicinal pills. The original elders have all improved their cultivation bases now. The law enforcement hallmaster Meng Xian and Elder Zheng have already reached the peak Yuanying stage, and they were only one step away from entering the Daching stage. Even the master of the palace has reached the late Yuanying stage, and it seems that he will soon be able to break through the bottleneck. These elders in the previous life, all of them died in the Yuanying stage, but now there were signs of breakthroughs. Everything has been very different from his previous life. Eden stage masters are almost like cutting leeks, emerging one after another. It was now approaching the scale of tens of thousands. Later, tens of thousands of highly qualified disciples were recruited, and as time passed, there would be more and more masters. There were many experts. It also means that the strength of the sect was even higher. The surrounding small sects have basically been incorporated into the Pure Yang Palace. These are all those small sects who took the initiative to take effect, and the Pure Yang Palace does not have the slightest act of bullying. Everyone knows that the Pure Yang Palace was not what it used to be, so there are many benefits to joining the Pure Yang Palace. Those small sects joined decisively without even thinking about it. If nothing else, the revenue from the 100,000 mountains alone gives the Pure Yang Palace countless resources. This was not to mention the Banyan Tree Immortal Cave, which is also a land with endless resources. If the income of the 10,000 treasure building is counted, the Pure Yang Palace was now extremely rich. The 10,000 treasure building was supported by Yang Chen, with the face-staying pills. Almost all the markets of the sects have a branch of the 10,000 treasure building. Even the South China Sea Rogue Cultivators Alliance, which is not even involved in the Greatest Heaven sect, has a branch. The Banyan Tree Immortal Cave of the monster race was even more indispensable. It was a specialty of the monster race and the South China Sea. It has already made 10,000 treasure building a lot of money, and the difference between the two sides made Sheng Yuanfeng, who was in charge of management, happy every day. Although the Wine Immortal House joined the sect in secret, it would not hide anything from Yang Chen. Now the Wine Immortal House has also recruited more people, and their scale was also getting bigger and bigger. Even in addition to Senior Zhu Xian, there was another Daching stage expert who now firmly occupies the top spot in intelligence trading. If there was any trouble in the cultivation world, it will be placed on the desk of the core elders of the Pure Yang Palace as soon as possible. The entire sect was showing an upward trend like a volcanic eruption. The former seniors and the current sect master and elders have said how many times they want to revitalize the sect. Now they finally see the process of revitalizing the sect. Everything shows the unstoppable upward momentum of the Pure Yang Palace. Almost all of this originated from Yang Chen, so the current core elders were extremely satisfied with Yang Chen, the young palace master. As long as Yang Chen is alive, not to mention that he disappears with his wives for more than 70 years, and no matter how long it was, they will not have any opinion. During the years of Yang Chen's training, nothing major has happened in the world of cultivation. The major sects were developing independently, trying to grab the monster race's territory and win over the monster race. The most prosperous 10,000 trees forest of the monster race has long been occupied by the Pure Yang Palace, which was only discovered by the 5 major sects after they arrived at the 10,000 trees forest. Because of Yang Chen's relationship, they all acquiesced in the control of the Pure Yang Palace, and none of them started to snatch it. Now, other sects have regarded the Pure Yang Palace as a first-class sect, not the quasi-second-rate sect of previous years. With the current strength of the Pure Yang Palace, it was enough to become a first-class sect. However, in order to become a super first-class sect like the 5 major sects, the Pure Yang Palace still needs more background growth, which is not something that can be achieved with some masters in a short period of time. That would take thousands of years or more to accumulate. Even so, the Pure Yang Palace has been full of surprises. From a quasi-second-class sect to a first-class sect, it only takes 300 years. Such efficiency, even the Greatest Heaven sect has not experienced it. What's your plan next? After introducing this to Yang Chen, the palace master and the others naturally ask such a question after learning about the experience of Yang Chen and others. The habit of killing will take some time to adjust, so this disciple intends to take them to find a place to retreat. Yang Chen did not hide anything from the elders and revealed his plan. In addition, in the past few decades, this disciple has not had too much time for alchemy, so I plan to concentrate on refining for a while, just in retreat. Yang Chen had promised to take some outside entrustments every once in a while. He hadn't made alchemy in these years, so he just used the time to make a batch. At the same time, the sex questioning inner heart pills and inner sensing pills etc. have been consumed almost completely and they also need to be replenished. You can arrange everything yourself. The palace master has no plans to arrange for Yang Chen at all, but fully supports Yang Chen's decision. The sect has obtained a lot of precious materials over the years. If you need it, you can find Elder Zheng who can bring everything to you. This decision, the elders have no objection at all, and all agreed. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 560. Of course Yang Chen couldn't leave right away. Many people in the Pure Yang Palace needed him to stay and deal with many things. If nothing else, the 10,000 treasure building was strictly Yang Chen's private property. No matter which aspect, Yang Chen needs to take care of it. Shang Yuanfeng has already entered the Jidan stage. It must be said that this was a miracle, and it is also the most suitable example of finding the direction of his own cultivation. At the beginning, Shang Yuanpeak didn't even have the confidence to reach the foundation stage and had to manage Yixu, but Shang Yuanfeng's fun was in management. Later, the 10,000 treasure building provided by Yang Chen also allowed Shang Yuanfeng to find a suitable way of cultivation. In the process of expanding the business, Shang Yuanfeng's state of mind and cultivation have also risen steadily from the foundation building stage to the current late Jidan stage. Speaking of which, Shang Yuanfeng's qualifications were very poor, otherwise he would not be able to build his foundation for decades. Until now, even if he has found a suitable cultivation path for himself, 300 years have only allowed him to cultivate to the late Jidan stage, which was still a long way from the Yuaning stage. However, for Shang Yuanfeng with ordinary qualifications, this was already a great miracle. He has even seen the hope of reaching the Yuaning stage. You must know that Shang Yuanfeng in his previous life had exhausted his lifespan before the Jidan stage and was still in the foundation establishment stage. This life was already a world of difference. When Yang Chen saw senior brother Shang Yuan, he gave him some solid guidance. The current Yang Chen, not to mention cultivation, just because of his identity, he can completely instruct Shang Yuanfeng without any awkwardness. Over the years, the face-staying pills that Yang Chen left to Shang Yuanfeng has been exhausted. Fortunately, Yang Chen has returned in time and will soon provide him with another batch for him to have a good relationship with the major sects. Don't underestimate the fact that the face-staying pills was stationed in this district. Most of the female cultivators of the sect are rushing to it. Now they don't dare to say anything else, but whoever dares to do anything to the 10,000 treasure building will definitely be destroyed from head to toe by these crazy female cultivators. Whoever dares to destroy their hope of staying in beauty, they dare to destroy the possibility of these guys to survive. Some precious materials were directly taken away by Yang Chen. Yang Chen still hasn't taken anything from the sect's warehouse for the time being. Anyway, the 10,000 treasure building has been able to meet Yang Chen's needs. There is no need to take advantage of the sect at this time, although no one in the Pure Yang Palace has ever felt that Yang Chen is taking advantage of the sect by taking things from the sect. The master and the elders visited him individually, and the old tree monster, Shikui and Xia and others were no exception. Even Du Qian, who was a good friend from the past, did drop by. Almost everyone who had a good relationship with Yang Chen arranged a separate meeting. The elders, Yang Chen, are not good at giving direct guidance, but only put forward some suggestions on their own cultivation by using suggested methods. These suggestions were adopted by the elders without exception. For things that make sense, no one will think that their cultivation is high. Friends of the same generation, Yang Chen did not think so much and told them something directly. Shikui Shisha was used to being instructed by Yang Chen, and the old tree demon benefited a lot. Du Qian was now at the peak Jidan stage and will soon enter the Yuaning stage. After Yang Chen gave some pointers, he let him get an inner sensing pill from the sect himself and if necessary, take a questioning inner heart pill, so there would be absolutely no problem in being promoted to the Yuaning stage. After taking care of his close elders and friends one by one, Yang Chen turned to his disciples. Yu Bai had a strong cultivation base from the beginning and he had a solid foundation at the Jidan stage. With the help of his junior sister Hua Menju, the hidden dangers that he had fallen while cultivating in the bitter cold place have been cleaned up. As long as he cultivates step by step, it will not be a problem until he reaches the Great Golden Immortal stage. On Yu Bai, Yang Chen's instructions were also quite satisfactory. It didn't give him any shortcuts. At any time, shortcuts are good, but there are always hidden dangers of one kind or another. If you want to go further, you must be down to earth. To inspire Mu Bai, Yang Chen even gave Mu Bai a promise, as long as he could cultivate step by step until the Yuaning stage. Yang Chen would teach him the first wood true secret art. Before that, Yang Chen gave Mu Bai some of the purified mysterious fibers from the demonized demon vine and let him try to see if he could use it. From this time, Yang Chen instructed Mu Bai to start tempering his life source flying sword. He believes that when it succeeds, its power will become stronger and stronger. Speaking of Hua Menju, this disciple surprised Yang Chen. You must know that Hua Menju's aptitude was only comparable to that of Yang Chen's previous life, but now she was at the peak foundation building stage, and her cultivation speed was almost the same as that of Yang Chen back then. He can't help but say that, just like Shangyuan Feng, Hua Menju, who had found the right direction of her cultivation, burst out with a cultivation speed that surprised Yang Chen even more than in her previous life. Yang Chen was amazed by her achievements. In her previous life, it was hundreds of years later that Hua Menju realized that planting elixir and various plants would trigger her own self-cultivation and improve her mood. In this life, Yang Chen had made her do this from the very beginning. After taking hundreds of years of detours, Hua Menju's achievements have been secretly admired by many people. Not only Mu Bai, but even Mu Bai's clansmen, the old patriarch, and even the old tree demon, almost all have nothing to do and take turns stationing in Hua Menju's range of activities, allowing her to nurture them intentionally or unintentionally, and solve their growth process and some hidden dangers that are inevitably left behind. After Hua Menju's recuperation, the cultivation of these wood-type monsters became smoother. Now Hua Menju doesn't have to rely on Yang Chen's apprenticeship in the Pure Yang Palace. Just these Mu Bai people and the support of the old tree demon are enough to make Hua Menju walk sideways in the Pure Yang Palace. Yang Chen was equally satisfied with Hua Menju. He deliberately gave Hua Menju another space for her medicine garden and handed over some spring water to her and even moved a lot of the 1,000-year-old spirit medicines in the first layer of his medicine garden so that she could take care of it. In order to give Hua Menju more insight, Yang Chen even threw Hua Menju into his own medicine garden. The 1,000-year-old elixir planted in pieces, countless 10,000-year elixir, and even those cherished elixir of more than 100,000 years, opened Hua Menju's horizons. Thus this trip to the medicine garden allowed Hua Menju to gain countless benefits. The nourishment of countless elixirs has directly raised Hua Menju's cultivation to the peak foundation establishment stage. Only one step away, she will be able to achieve the Jidan stage. What surprised Yang Chen was that the quality of the various elixirs in his medicine garden had also improved due to the appearance of Hua Menju. For all the elixirs in the medicine garden, Yang Chen asked Hua Menju to take the seeds, and these seeds will be planted in the medicine garden that Yang Chen gave to Hua Menju. Of course, Yang Chen didn't forget to instruct her. When cultivating, don't focus on fast speed and try to cultivate as pure as possible. By the time he had finished helping out everyone, Yang Chen had spent another half a year from Green Jade Immortal Island to Blue Cloud Sect and then to the Pure Yang Palace, and it was time to leave. It's not that he doesn't want to stay in the Pure Yang Palace, Yang Chen himself is fine, but the four women have become more and more unable to adapt to the normal cultivation life, just in case, Yang Chen can only take them away. Where are we going? What method are we going to use? Sun Qingxu must have acted as the vanguard of questions. Yang Chen and the other three girls doted on her very much and she was the youngest, so she naturally took advantage. Filling syndrome is the biggest trouble for the four girls now and they will kill at every turn, which is not a good phenomenon. If this trouble is not solved, the four girls will not even be able to integrate into their sect. On the contrary, Yang Chen himself, for the time being, does not have such a problem. Once he was in the demon continent, he didn't have a lot of killing experience, mainly fighting against demonic Kai. Second, Yang Chen has the state of mind of a Great Luo Golden Immortal, so it was not too difficult to deal with such troubles. This world is so big, you haven't taken a good look at it, have you? Yang Chen had already had a case and replied with a smile, husband will accompany you to take a good look at the wonderful rivers and mountains. Is there anything I haven't seen? When I traveled before, I saw a lot. Sun Qingxu did not expect it to be so relaxed and couldn't believe it. You used to watch it on your flying sword. Have you ever seen it while walking on your own feet? Yang Chen asked rhetorically. As if afraid that everyone would not be surprised enough, he added. Like an ordinary person, have you tried it? This is a never-before-seen experience, and the four girls seem to be a little moved. It sounds like a good idea for their husband to take them on a tour of the mountains and rivers. In order to avoid trouble, for the time being, your cultivation can only be sealed first. Yang Chen explained to the four women just like a real ordinary person. Why is this required? Gao Yu asked in a deep voice, a little puzzled. The other three women also stared at Yang Chen, waiting for him to explain. Sometimes, you habitually kill because you have the power to kill. If you seal this power, your body will not be able to respond accordingly and you will slowly restrain yourself a lot. Yang Chen explained wait for you to slowly adjust when you can restrain yourself. Even if you have completed the initial conditioning. Wouldn't it mean that sealing cultivation will delay our cultivation? Zhanxian was most concerned about cultivation and immediately asked. No, after sealing the cultivation base, all the spiritual power will be used to temper the life source magic weapon, and the tempering effect will be even better than that of normal cultivation. Yang Chen replied. Then we will become weak women with no strength to hold a chicken. Gongsun asked closely, for a Yuning stage master to suddenly become an ordinary person, there will definitely be a lot of discomfort, and the four women were more embarrassed. To be exact, it's not like this. Yang Chen said this, and the eyes of the girls immediately lit up. After all, you are all masters of the Yuning stage who have experienced the thunder tribulation. Even if your cultivation base is sealed, you are still much stronger than ordinary people. Yang Chen explained with a smile. The four girls were stunned for a while, and in the end, they still wanted to become ordinary people. Although there are many reluctances in their hearts, it seems that this is the arrangement of their husband and it can help them solve their troubles, so it seems that they have to do it. Of course, after you seal your cultivation, it doesn't mean you can't continue your cultivation. Yang Chen's words made the four girls puzzled again, they all stared at him, waiting to explain. During this period of time, you will cultivate a kind of body refining technique which will only benefit you and will not hurt you. Yang Chen said directly without giving up. No. As soon as they heard it was a body refining technique, the girls' minds flashed the sturdy figure of Yang Chen when he cultivated the Yellow Turban Warrior's body refining technique. All of a sudden, they were shaking their heads one by one like a rattle. If the body refining techniques were all that effective, the girls would rather not cultivate it. Even shy Zhanxian, who pays the most attention to cultivation. There is no accommodation at all on this issue, she was determined not to cultivate it. Are you sure? Yang Chen seemed to have anticipated the thoughts of the girls and asked with a smile, don't you want to cultivate any kind of body refining? Anyway, we will never cultivate the kind you cultivate. Sun Qingxu pouted and refused on behalf of everyone. Even if you are willing, I won't let you cultivate it. Yang Chen laughed directly, I don't want to see my four beautiful wives become like that. What kind of body refining technique is that? Gongsun asked curiously. It was left by a certain female cultivator. Yang Chen replied, the main function of the body refinement technique is to make oneself more beautiful. What Yang Chen mentioned was actually the countenance halting heart method left by Fairy Chang'e. This kind of cultivation method does not have any benefits for the cultivator's strength, the only benefit is that it has the skills to protect beauty. Maybe it means nothing to others, but to the ladies, it was more important than anything else. Isn't there your face staying pill? What's the point of cultivating this? Although she was already a little tempted in her heart, Gongsun still asked inexplicably. This body refining technique is a little better than the face staying pill. Yang Chen touched his nose and replied indifferently. What do you mean by being better? The four girls almost listened with their ears perked up when it came to beauty, and even Gao Yu asked immediately. The better meaning is that as long as you cultivate one stick of incense every day, you can basically achieve eternal youth without taking the face staying pills. Yang Chen replied seriously, of course, if you don't want to cultivate it, I won't force it. We want to cultivate it. The four women responded almost in unison, and at the same time, they did not forget to reach out and twist Yang Chen in unison. After the Yang Chen family left the Pure Yang Palace, the cultivators never saw the Yang Chen family again. However, there suddenly appeared a young rich man in the mortal world. He hired a few big cars, pulled his four beautiful wives, and brought dozens of guards and servants to travel around the world slowly every day. Every time the team went to a beautiful place, they would stop and take a careful tour. Not only that, but they also often enter the mortal city, taste the food, drink the wine, and watch the mortal world's beautiful scenery. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more.